show that the Liberty Governing Board meeting is called to order Monday, February 12th, 2024 at the Jerry Rovey District Facility. We have 4 board members present: Vice Chairman President Parks, Board Member Bixler, Board Member Kenyon, and myself. Our next item of business will be item 1.2, the Pledge of Allegiance. Board Member Kenyon, can you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda is item 1.3, approval of regular agenda.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the regular agenda consistent with board policy BEDB and temporarily suspend the governing board policy which with this agenda may be inconsistent.
Mr. President, I second.
I have a motion, a second, to approve item 1.3, the regular agenda approval. I call your name, please specify your vote. Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that as 4 yes, 0 no. Next item on our agenda is 2.1, Governing Board update.
I don't have anything, Mr. President.
Member Bixler?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. Did have a really good couple of weeks here since last time. I'll go through it as quickly as I can. First was the campus tour over at Las Brisas. Excellent tour, lots of good stuff going on. The intentionality on that campus was amazing. Obviously, there were visible conversations, not only with staff to staff, but more importantly, there were academic conversations going on between student to student. It was one of the more amazing things we've seen. They were talking about working on a standard, which is the type of vocabulary you want to hear them talk about when they're talking about what they're learning. They're talking about the Arizona standards. And that's the kids that are talking about it. It was just, again, so absolutely amazing. I got to see a lot of stuff, and the intentionality of Las Brisas, you can cut it with a knife. We did get a chance to go in and visit one of the math programs, and obviously Las Brisas does have a bilingual program, so we saw both the math being presented in English and in Spanish. And in the Spanish bilingual program, I did ask at one point how many of the students in that classroom were actually native speakers, and to my surprise, 10%. I could not tell who the native speakers were in that classroom. It was absolutely amazing. Second place went to was coffee with the superintendent. Had a lot of fun doing that over at Rainbow Valley. Excellent going on. For the parents that haven't taken part in those before, please go do those. You learn so much while you're there. The thing that stood out to me while I was standing there was we had an opportunity to talk to the administration about what they've seen as far as gains and benefits and celebrations for what was going on there. And a couple of the parents were there, and they spoke so glowingly of what their children had experienced on that campus. And it brought the assistant principal to tears. And I've got to tell you, that moved me a great deal to see how much she cared about how well the kids were doing. That just grabbed my heart. Next on to the bus rodeo. Oh my gosh, was that fun. I want to tell you how much I appreciated Bart, the driver, for taking me in a ride along around the course. And we had a long conversation, found out that he's also a wrestler, and had a lot of conversation about that as we were going through the course. And wow, the skill that those people displayed out there. I hope we do well at the big time rodeo. It was a lot of fun to watch what I did watch that day. Then on to the West Side Impact Region 5 Spelling Bee. And again, if you've never been there, oh gosh, it's so much fun to see what's going on there. We were very well represented. I want to congratulate Liam Perkins and, I should know her, Piper Johnson, and how they did. Liam went out in the 8th round, Piper went out in the 9th round. They both did excitingly well. The words that got him, animosity for Liam, I'm sorry that got him, and it did break my heart because this is my church. Episcopal took out Piper. And so I'm so sorry that that happened to her. But boy, what a great experience that was to watch that and to celebrate with them at the end. And then finally, the Science Olympiad over at Castile High School, way on the other side of the world. If you've not been to an Olympiad, what you're looking at is a series of events that the kids are involved with. And they take a team over. Estrella Mountain took their science team over. And I didn't really get to see our teams competing because they were off somewhere else. It is amazing. They build up a camp in the cafeteria, and then the kids just kind of go off to the competitions they're in. And so it's just this flow of bodies in and out, in and out. I did get a chance to see a couple of the competitions that had happened during that time I was there, and it was just spectacular. I don't know how our children did, but if it looked like anything else that was going on, oh, I see somebody saying fifth. Is that what I saw, fifth? So great. There were lots and lots of schools there, all kinds of little bodies wandering around. Nonetheless, great time, a lot of fun. Go next time it's here. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Yes, ma'am.
Can I just have IT look at my computer really quick, please?
Yes.
My board doc says it seems to be operating correctly.
Okay, that's important for you especially. Yep. We'll just hold the meeting for a minute while we work on that. with item 2.1, which is our governing board update. We left off with board member Bixler. He finished. We'll now move to board member Kenyon.
Thank you, President Todd. This last week was a lot of fun, a lot of things happening. I didn't get to make it to everything, but I was able to. Well, I want to first thank and commend the board. All four of us members were present at Tuesday's Budget Interest Committee, and just sat and observed. We weren't a part of it, just to see what the committee, their discussion, and what was going on there, and that was very informative, and it was good to see everybody there. Friday, I was also at the bus rodeo, and that was a blast. And thank you, some of you guys were out there as well, and thank you for coming and supporting that. It was a lot of fun being with the transportation department. And the obstacles they had to overcome weren't that easy. They look easy while you're standing there watching. And then I had my daughter with me, and she's like, "Dad, why don't you drive a bus?" Well, I've never driven a bus before. I have a CDL, I drive a big semi-truck, but I haven't driven a bus. It's a little different. And somebody kind of said, "Yeah, we can get you in there." So I ended up taking the course and got my test score back. You'd be glad to know I'm not a bus driver. It wasn't horrible. I think I was just about, the bottom end of the average scale, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And it's, seeing what a lot of strategy into driving a bus. It sounds so simple, but it does take somebody who knows what they're doing. Not only that, but it takes somebody who knows how to deal with kids. A lot of people can drive a big vehicle and they cannot deal with kids. And we have some excellent staff in our transportation department. So there's that. And I also heard that while that was going on, we actually had some interview process going on for some of our potential principals and principal positions going on over at Liberty. And so I got the opportunity just to kind of walk over there, and I wasn't involved in anything, but I want to thank Miss Murray over there. She kind of gave me a little information on how the process works, and that was very, very nice. And I stole her bathroom break, so sorry, Miss Murray. But it was wonderful to see, and I think we had 7 or 8 applicants coming through that time, and so that was really good to hear that there's interest in that. But overall, it was a really fun weekend. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few things that are repetitive and a couple new. Got to spend a day down at the Capitol with our student council from Las Brisas and Blue Horizon, along with Dr. Monroe. They had Parents' Day at the Capitol. We got to meet with our legislative representatives there as well. And some of our students went into the gallery to see it. Liberty had 2 shout outs from the floor with a resounding welcome to the House, which is a tradition down there. So it was a great time. We spent the day. The students got to meet their elected officials. And I was lucky enough to give them a little tour of the old Capitol building, which was kind of fun. And as they got to sit in there, student council's eyes were bright. I think they recognized the power that elected officials can have and how fun it can be. So looking forward to it. I recently received mail from one of the student councils, so I'm hoping that's good news, but we'll read that later. I think it is. But their eyes got real big as we started talking about the process of councils and government, and we're really excited. So super exciting time for us there. We did attend coffee with the superintendent over at Rainbow Valley. I just want to thank the parents that showed up, and then after the meeting, I had a long time speaking with Lacey Jensen, and it was a great conversation, so I just want to thank her for the time for that, and talking about some great ideas that she brought forward in the meeting, and how we can adopt some of that and continue the many good things that are happening here at Liberty. This past week, I spent the better part of 2 days with Ms. Daniels and the coaches at Las Brisas and Blue Horizon, learning a little bit more about that program. One thing that we've really pushed is not just doing walkthroughs where we're in a classroom for a few minutes, but to actually spend time in the trenches, if you will, and understand what's happening with those programs, how they're working. So often when we're up here at the dais, it's somewhat like drinking out of a fire hose, and I mean a big fire hose, trying to understand everything that goes on. So, and that's not just in the classroom, but with budgets, there's a lot of moving parts to the district. So those are great opportunities, and to have that time, Ms. Daniel did a great job watching some of those children who the coaches were working on with breakout groups, which in many instances were children that were maybe behind where the teachers thought they should be. It's still amazing how much they're doing, and the way the coaches work with them, and to watch in 45-minute blocks how a student went from not grasping to starting to, you could see the light bulb start kind of flickering, and then boop, it came on. This day they were learning the sounds of C and K, so I picked an easy day, of course, K, K, and just kept in my head when I was in there with the first graders, are you smarter than a fifth grader? And I kept thinking that, and I was in first grade. So we got some bright kids, and it was very interesting to see the progression. So we started with a lower grade, and then moved up to a higher grade. Kind of the same thing, but just to see where they had taken the pieces from previous years and started to move that up was really a great experience. And then just spending time with those coaches afterwards, hearing from them and kind of asking some questions and hearing their challenges, hearing what's good, what might work better. It's great. So I encourage all of our board members to continue to do that sort of thing. It is a time commitment, but it's money, time well spent. You know, your investment in that time is really good. So so with that, we moved on to the rodeo. Got there a few minutes late. I'm sorry, Mr. Kenyon, but you did get the scores, and I was a few points ahead of you. So we can do a rematch if you'd like. But you know, I might have stayed longer too and helped with the score. Not really, but anytime I can poke a fellow board member, it's a little bit fun. But to Board Member Kenyon's point, it's tough. Those buses are long. We've both driven very big vehicles, but the buses are a little different, and I really can't imagine it with 30 or 40. I'm sure they're all super quiet at all times. The silence is probably deafening on the bus, so I can't imagine driving it with total peace and quiet. But and I'm sure that's what our bus drivers would all agree to. It's always quiet. It's a challenge, and but I would like to congratulate David Johnson, who was the winner that day, and Allie Phillips, who came in second place. They're both going to go on and compete at the state level. And if anybody wants to try it, I bet you Miss Dondi would figure a way to let that happen. I'll put her on the hook there a little bit, but it's a process, and it was challenging. I came out of there with gray hair, so it's crazy. The other mention was the budget committee, which we talked about. The budget committee is working on the budget for the future year. It's not this year's budget; it's next year's budget. That's very common to look ahead, and so I think the participation there, we went a little longer this time than the past two meetings. I think it was far more successful, and it takes a little bit of time to get the discussion ramped up and moving, and by going 2 hours, which was longer than the previous meetings, I think that really afforded some opportunity from there. So nothing that is being discussed currently has an effect on next year's budget. That hasn't been presented to the board yet. There's still a couple more meetings. We'll then come to the board for some work sessions, and so we're excited about it, but I think we're moving in the right direction. So with that, I also really quick just wanted to introduce our student who's joining us, and Dr. Monroe will give us a little more information about that. But we have a guest at every meeting, and you weren't here to smack the gavel, so give it 3 good smacks, okay? That's part of it. There you go, you're official. All right, sounds good. Now we'll move on to item 3.1, the attendance and enrollment reports.
President Todd, Vice President Parks, members of the board. The attendance and enrollment reports are presented as we do at each board meeting, and we're happy to answer any questions the board may have. We continue to see a increase in attendance since the winter break, a trickle up, which is very nice. So even into February, we continue to enroll students.
Members, any questions?
Yes, Dr. Monroe, real quickly, what I was seeing was trending up. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Looks like our percentage of students daily attending is going up. I know there's been a real concerted effort at each campus to contact parents where we're starting to see additional absences or even tardies starting to build up. Are you?
That's correct, Member Bixler. In fact, you'll hear Mrs. Schaefer will talk about some of even Las Brisas efforts to cut down on absenteeism and have better contact with our families to make sure parents are coming to school or registering or including our kindergarten roundup, which is happening right now, which will impact our enrollment for next year.
Right, and certainly the funding follows the numbers. So it's fair to say that things are moving up, right?
Yes,
We're having success.
yes, we're trending in the right direction. As I've reminded the board in the past, this last year we promoted a large group of eighth graders and we enrolled a smaller group of kindergartners. So if you run that through your mind, you can see that our enrollment went down a little bit because of that loss. However, we've been able to grow to almost get back to where we are, which is very encouraging that that trajectory is kind of bouncing back. What we're keeping an eye on with attendance and enrollment is moving forward, we're going to have another large group of eighth graders promote onto the high school. And so we're really trying to get our kindergarten students in. So
And
that
just
there's
for
not-
clarity, what we're talking about is even though our total number may be down, our percentage of students coming to school regularly is going up.
Correct. Correct. Attendance is up. Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Monroe, we're having still little problems with board docs. I can't pull up my notes, but I know when we were at Rainbow Valley, they announced some pretty aggressive turns in their attendance by making some phone calls. Do you remember?
Yeah. What was that, Mrs. Camp? Do you remember that percentage?
56% to 6%, roughly?
Rainbow Valley has made a concerted effort to cut down on their excessive absences. And it was quite startling. And I don't think Ryan's in the audience. Do you remember what it was, Natasha?
So she reported that last year they had 54% of their students chronically absent. And when she pulled the data in December, they were at 3%.
Chronically absent being 10 days or more, right? So we're not through the year yet, but that is a great statistic. And you'll hear that again in Las Brisas' presentation tonight about how the efforts of our leaders and teachers are paying off and kids are attending.
I can't say how exciting that is to do that. Also, I think it's important to know sometimes with our attendance being down, that also has to do with birth rates of that year. So we have smaller numbers of students. It's not that we're losing them, that so many are going somewhere else. It's that we just have a smaller pool to draw from. So we're going to see those waves, and we always balance that with, in a few years, the eighth grade class will be smaller because the small kindergarten class is going to fluctuate up. We had this little thing called COVID, and everybody says the birth rates went up a little bit. So I think we'll see some trends here in a couple years where we'll have bigger classes coming in. So it's always a balance and kind of a wave that we ride. Okay, our next item will be item 3.2, the governing board and superintendent recognitions. Dr. Monroe.
Yeah, President Todd, Vice President Parks, and members of the board. This is kind of the Las Brisas night tonight. So I'm going to turn the time back over to President Todd. We're going to do some Las Brisas recognitions of our excellent staff. We'll also recognize Eric, and then soon after we'll have a presentation from Las Brisas. So if I could invite the board members down to the floor, and I'll hand the mic over to President Todd, we'll go to that point.
So for those of you who regularly attend, you hear us say often that this is one of the joys of being on the board and being the superintendent, getting this opportunity to recognize our staff. It's a great thing. So each month we recognize a different campus, and you would think I would have memorized this. We put some nice words together, and I just use it as a cheat sheet. But on behalf of Dr. Monroe and the governing board members, myself, the Liberty Elementary School District is proud to be building a community and culture that motivates, develops, and recognizes staff and individuals in our community who perform outstanding work for our students. We want to reward excellent performance and achievement and show appreciation, not only towards our staff who have achieved a goal, performed well, or exhibited behavior that is worth awarding, but also acknowledge our amazing parents and volunteers who are valued in their daily contributions to our school and inside the classroom. And for those of you that don't get to be on the campus very often, those volunteers, it's so hard to say the teachers or the maintenance folks or the support staff is the heart and soul. The heart and soul is the whole picture. And those volunteers who are doing photocopies, who are out running around, taking things from class to class, who are helping sometimes just give a hug to a student who's having a rough day. It's amazing. That's not to take away from what the teachers are doing. They're in there all the time. So it's really hard to say one is more. It's a combined picture, but truly they have a positive impact on the lives of our students. They're the individuals who make our vision a reality, and they are here tonight to be recognized for their dedication to liberty and our students. When I call your name, I'd ask you to come up. We'll shake your hand, give you a certificate. You're already up here. Perfect. I was going to call you up, but Sneaky in that green shirt. Yeah, yeah. Man, as elected, I should watch my back better than that, I guess. But anyhow, we'll move forward with that. And our first one is going to be Marcos Roman. Thank you very much. Next will be Guadalupe Malaki. I think I said that wrong. I was so excited.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Okay, our district support representative will be Joey Polk, and he's not here tonight. Recognizing our parent will be, yeah, sorry, I'm off here. Yeah, Patty McDonald, our teacher. Okay, and our on-site staff support is Brianna Giles. So again, if we can get one more round of applause for what is a small representation of the heart and soul of Las Brisas. Now we gotta look like a family, get close together and take some pictures.
Okay, President Todd, Vice President Parks, I'd like to introduce our student leader here tonight. I want to read a little something while we're getting ready about Eric. Although we just started this, I think this is our second time doing this. I just want to say how impressive it is for me as a superintendent to see the quality individuals that our student leaders are. I think the board would join me in saying just how proud we are of these students. I joke around saying when I grow up, I'd like to be as impressive as these young people. And so let me tell you a little bit about Eric. He's an 8th grader from Las Brisas. And then Eric will hand you the microphone and we'll go up to the podium.
He's gonna kick me out. Sit right here.
Okay, he's gonna sit right there. Okay, but let me tell you a little bit about Eric, who's seated to my right. Eric Biscata. He was nominated by his teachers for being one of the most kind, generous, and hardworking students that you'll ever meet. He currently serves as a leader on the National Junior Honor Society, but he's also an informal leader every day in the classroom. Eric is dedicated to getting his work done. He does his best. He's earning all A's and B's in his classes. When he's in class, you see Eric helping other students, and he ensures that everyone's doing the best on their assignments too. Outside of school hours, I really like this. You'll see Eric cheering on his classmates at all the Las Brisas home sport games. No matter the season, we're honored that Eric is a road runner. So Eric, we're gonna let you take over, I guess, President Todd's seat, and you can read your little biography there, your little introduction, and then we'll give a big round of applause for Eric. So why don't you come on over here? Switch, let's sit over there. So just move up really close to the mic so they can hear you really well. You'll have to lean in because you're pretty tall.
My name's Eric. I've been at Las Brisas for 3 years. I'm currently an 8th grader. During the time that I've been at Las Brisas, I'm joined NJHS. I'm a leader in my grade. My favorite things about Las Brisas are the teachers, the community that we have there. See, the teachers are kind. They help with everything, anything. And you always learn a lot from them. Our community works together to cheer on and support each other. For example, we all go together to cheer on our classmates at basketball and soccer games. We even cheer on each other in younger grades when we watch a musical to support each other. I am excited to go to high school, and I know that I will be successful. Las Brisas has taught me to be kind and that other people will give that kindness back.
President Todd, can we get a picture with the board and Eric up front? So if the board members want to make it up front.
Hang on, it's plugged in. And smile. One more. Okay, thank you. Good job, Eric.
And that's those are our recognitions.
Thank you. As you can see, once again, we have great students. Although Eric was selected tonight, I know that that was not an easy process for his campus. Not to take away from your successes, but you mentioned yourself a lot of great things going on there, and I think it's fantastic that NJHS has taken upon themselves to go cheer people on. It's a great teamwork, and we love to see that. That's exactly what that organization is about: good grades and helping others. So we will now move to item 3.3, which is the Las Brisas Academy presentation with Miss Sarah Schaefer.
They're trying to avoid it. Good thing I have excellent wait time as a teacher. Hello, President Todd, Vice President Parks, Governing Board members, Dr. Monroe, district staff and guests, and Eric, who I'm probably the most nervous to present to. I'm proud to present the incredible work we're doing at LBA and alongside our instructional coach, Ms. Grisefa, and our assistant principal, Ms. Malley. So up on the board, you'll see a lot of words that we know describe our Roadrunners, both as students and as teachers. But the reason we have Roadrunners are resilient is highlighted is because that is the word that we're really driving home this year with our teachers. To be resilient means to be able to bounce back and overcome hard challenges. Now, we know teaching is an incredibly hard job, and it's not about being the best every day, but it's about overcoming the hard things and being able to say, hey, what did I learn from that? What can I do tomorrow? How can I continue to be more resilient, even if I have a bad day or a hard time with a lesson? And so we've spent this year working with and supporting our educators and our leadership team in building what is resiliency and actually the concrete ways to overcome challenges, to build resiliency within ourselves. So we're really hitting home this year because we also believe in positive presuppositions. So we're telling ourselves we are resilient because we've had a lot of changes this year. We have new math resource, we have a 4-day week, and we know we're doing incredible things. So you'll see that word a lot. You've probably seen it on our shirts. And with that also comes some incredible celebrations. Well, we could fill 15 slides with all the amazing work LBA is doing and all the highlights we've had so far this year. we would be absolutely amiss to not celebrate our A label and the fun that we had with our students and staff and you all this week, or the week we announced it. I know that LBA has been an A school since I started here. We just didn't have that label. And so the fact that, you know, the state has recognized because of our student achievement, the hard work that our teachers are doing was truly something that our entire staff was overcome with joy to have. We will continue to do the best work for kids, no matter what a test score says or the state says. But it was great to have that recognition and be able to collectively celebrate such a huge win that we all were in together. So right now I'd like to have Ms. Graceffa come up and talk to you about some amazing things we're doing inside and out of the classroom.
Good evening, everybody. LBA is lucky enough to have two signature programs, with our school-wide program being the Visual and Performing Arts. And in order to allow all of our students access to this signature program, we provide a variety of both in-class and extracurricular activities. Each year we add more and more, and our community is highly engaged in these activities like our recitals and some of the other ones I will talk about tonight too. From arts integration opportunities in day-to-day classroom, we also are having a capstone art project for each grade level. An example is our 8th grade rap math video that 8th grade has done in the past. And we're going to continue to grow this program throughout the year. For our after-school program, there is no shortage. Some of you have been to some of our studio center performances. This year we offered 21 different classes, and we also have band run by Miss Patty, our staff of the month, our teacher of the month, offered for 4th through 8th graders. And we also have a blockbuster musical that is open to our entire campus. So don't forget to come see that in April. And our students are continuing to show their passion and keep us entertained throughout the year when it comes to our signature program of Visual and Performing Arts. Our second signature program is the Dual Language Program, which is offered to students K through 5th grade. In this program, our students also engage in the Visual and Performing Arts signature program, along with their general math curriculum, but in Spanish. So during the school day, as you saw during our campus visit, our students get to explore and learn more about the culture, traditions, holidays, and food in Mexico and share their experiences with their classmates. It is another area where we engage our community and our families, and we host events and performances like the Dia de los Muertos performance, where they get to come and enjoy, and we know that this enriches both of their academics and their social success.
Thank you, Allie. So you're probably wondering, guys, you rocked it last year. What now? Oh, we still have goals, my friends. So last year, as you can see on the board, we scored 37% on our math AASA and 46% on our ELA. So we have some very high goals of 60% on both. You can also see the sub goals written there. So for example, in ELA, we are looking to score 70% or higher for the standards in reading for information. Now, the reason we've targeted a subgroup is it makes it have better or more visible wins for our teachers in shorter amount of time. So if I as a teacher know this is the target I'm going after with everything right now, focusing on that in professional development, in my PLC, it narrows my focus. That doesn't mean I give up the other things, but when I'm learning two things at once, I want to have one place where I can hold on to and really grow in that area. So we have that no matter if it's in math or ELA. We're setting sub-goals and tracking those with our teachers so we can celebrate big and small wins. But you can see some sub goals off to the side. I didn't break down what the actual goal was, but our teachers also have set their own goals for what they want their grade level to grow in Lexile, what they want their dream level or their Dreambox level to grow to. So having all these goals not only just helps our students know what the goal is, help our teachers see what those small wins, but also track, are we on our way to meet this big goal in ASA? Because we don't know until May. So we want to make sure we have indicators along the way. So with those goals, there are a million little things that Allie, Megan, myself, our teacher leaders, our collaborative teams all do day in, day out. But today I want to focus just on the green box, what we're doing as a school level. We have ways we're supporting our content areas, our different grade levels, and even individual teachers. But today I'm just going to dive into what our school level is doing. And we had to really ask ourselves, what is the one thing we can do that we can raise the water so all of the boats on our campus will rise? And then we broke it down to say, okay, what are the other things our teachers need in order to get there? We decided that what would raise all the boats was identifying our kids who are called double zeros. Double zero kid means that they have not had proficiency on ASSA, and they also have not grown on ASSA. We highly value growth, right? We want them to achieve because we know it's setting them up for high school success beyond, but we also want to know that they are growing. That's why we're here every day. We have about 70 students who are considered double zero students. So we decided to say this year we are focusing on having those students along with everybody else, but that high focus on our double zero kids. And so making sure we're able to react to them all year long. What we implemented then along with our teacher leaders was a data tracker tool that they created alongside with us that they utilize now as they're giving their assessments to say, hey, Allie, we've been on RI2 and Allie's not growing yet. I see that she's plateauing. What can we do to support her? It's becoming a collaborative tool rather than a hammer. And the teachers are really using it to see that every student is growing and moving, and we're able to respond to every student's need. Another thing we're doing is also reducing chronic absences. So Miss Malley's going to talk about that a little bit too, because that is a school-wide targeted approach we're taking.
Hello, yes. So we are super excited to focus on our attendance because we know that with the 4-day, our amount of time in the week has been limited. So we've really targeted that area. Our goal was to have 10% or less of chronic absenteeism. Right now, we're currently at about 4%, so we are very excited to continue on that growth. Our tardies is about 5%, so that's our next focus area. We've targeted this through our student success team. It's a group of teachers at various grade levels who come together once a month. We analyze the attendance data. We work together to create different steps so that way we can highlight the different grade levels because we know that middle schoolers, tardies and absences might be different than a kindergartner's. So we look through that whole wide lens to identify what we can do as a school to help support them. And one of the things that we have done this year is create a multi-tiered system that allows teachers to be the first point of contact in reaching out to parents to collaborate so that they know, like, hey, we want your kid here. Is there a reason why, use Allie's name again, Allie is not coming to school? Like, is something going on at home? Is there something going on at school that we're not aware of? And really work as that partnership. And from there, it continues to escalate. So if we're not seeing any improvement in their attendance, we go to the next step, which is, an admin phone call. And then after that, the student success team works together to create a parent meeting, just so that they know we want your kid to be successful, and we will throw all the resources we can at helping them come to school and solving those different issues. Like I said, our tardies are our next kind of area of focus. So when we come back this month, we're going to be targeting those numbers and seeing what we can put in place to help support students coming to school on time. And then the last thing that we do as a team is we created monthly incentives. So we know that we can, give consequences for not being there, but we really want to encourage and celebrate students who are coming to school and who are on time. So each month we kind of track that, and then students who have earned whatever the target is. So for February, it's 90% or better, which means only 2 days of absences. That means they get some sort of celebration. For our middle schoolers, it could be like a pajama day, which is something they're very excited about, or the little kids are excited about like a lollipop. So we look for different ways that we can, encourage and motivate our students to be at school.
So we have started a lot of work. We are continuing a lot of work with the support of our teachers, our amazing teacher leaders, teachers, community, you name it. Here are just some lists of next steps, but at the end of the day, we're going to be continuing our resiliency. We know that this isn't also a one-year thing. Teaching is hard, and we want to build up our skills because we care about our teachers enough to also develop them to be able to take on challenges. We're going to continue to look at what do each student specifically need so we can support them and continue to support our teachers in getting the teachers our students what they need. So with that being said, what questions do you have for us?
Vice President, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. That was a nice presentation. I'm glad to see the improvement in the process that you're using to keep the absenteeism up. I think that's critically important. And I look forward to seeing the progression with proficiency.
Yeah,
we're going to keep a close eye on that because that's really important throughout our district. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are too, so thank you.
Yeah, Mr. President. Ms. Schaefer, real quick, did I understand you say that there is a capstone project in all grade levels?
Yes.
Wow.
So each of our grades does a performing or visual arts signature event. Some of them are a digital medium, like fourth grade records commercials after making an art project related to a book study. Second grade does it's on a biography, on a wax museum, and the kids dress in character. You come in, you push their finger, and they read you their biography, and it is phenomenal. So each one of them has something. Fifth grade creates three-dimensional art based on volume and area of animals, and they create a zoo based on what they're learning about ecosystems that lives in our lobby for a couple months. So we'll invite you to them when they do their performances. They're wonderful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. When you have time, I have a capstone story about my senior year in high school.
Can't wait.
I'll share that with you at some point. I do have a question. One of the things that I really, really noticed the last time we were taking the tour on the campus recently was what appeared to be a very intentional effort to do cross-curricular efforts. Could you explain a little bit about what did I see? Was I correct?
You were correct. Both we have a focus on doing cross-curricular with the arts, both music, visual arts as well, but also our teachers work cross-curricularly to infuse social studies and science in our curriculum, whether it's in math or ELA. So depending on when we pop in, I think you saw a couple examples of the art being infused. If you came later in the afternoon, you would have seen we saw a couple examples of social studies being infused into what they were learning. So we know that our time is valuable, but we also know that for students to have the highest outcomes, there has to be that cross-curricular planning. So we try to provide our teachers as much time and resources to do that as possible.
It is good to see those other standards and other content areas because there is a great deal of crossover on it.
Absolutely.
And math, having them write in math and so on, that's all a real good idea, but I love the idea of moving the specials into that as well. Terrific idea. Lots of good things going on there.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Board Member Kenyon.
Anything I was going to say was already said. Excellent presentation. So happy to see what's going on over at Las Brisas, and can't wait to get over there.
Yeah, thank you.
I would concur. A couple things. First of all, thank you for opening up your campus to me. It's fun to come spend a day or more at campuses, and we learn so much more from that. So thank you for that. One thing that I was very impressed with when I came is your Google Sites, and I'd like to invite you back to the board to share what you're doing on the Google Sites thing. I think that's something that could be a benefit for a lot of different schools and campuses, departments on our grade. So we'll later on ask for you to come
we'll
back.
bring the teachers. They can show you their data trackers because they help make them. So
yeah, that would be great. And just
I'll show you the site. They'll show you the stuff inside.
Right,
It'd be great.
Congratulations on your absence rate going down. Obviously, with the 4-day week, an absence is bigger to this year than it was last year by a lot. So congratulations. It's exciting for all of our schools to really be reporting that. And then last but not least, it's a couple months past due, but congratulations on your engagement.
Oh, thank you.
We know that's news, so congratulations.
Thanks, everyone. Am I good? Okay.
Any more questions? No? All right. Do you agree with everything they said? You didn't throw the gavel at her or anything, so. No? Okay. See? We can call them up closer if you're afraid of your target. No? Okay, perfect. You guys are safe. Okay, next on our process will be item 3.4, the governing board vacancy process.
Yeah, President Todd, Vice President Parks, members of the board.
This item is to discuss our governing board vacancy and the process we're going to engage in and get the input from the board so the board can kind of direct me. We'll invite Mr. Dangerfield, our legal, up to the podium, but let me just set the stage and inform the board that on Wednesday, January 31st in the afternoon, I was in a meeting with Mr. Young, and a community member happened to say, "How are things going, Dr. Murnau? I understand you have a board vacancy." And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Oh, I understand that you have a board vacancy, that, someone resigned from the board." So, board members, this is how I found out about the board vacancy. I'm going to tell you that policy dictates when a board member resigns from the board that the board members are informed by the person as well as the superintendent. So I just wanted to let you know that when Member Aguirre resigned, I was caught unawares. In fact, I had to call the county superintendent's office on Wednesday to confirm that a board member had resigned, and they did confirm that and said that it happened 2 days ago. So I just wanted to let the board know that I found out about the resignation all of 48 hours after it happened, which I'm going to work with the county on correcting that because that obviously shouldn't happen. However, here we are now with the governing board vacancy, and I've invited Mr. Dangerfield up here to discuss with the board the process that we want to go through to be able to fill that spot. And so I know that this is not new to the board. It's new to me being in Liberty here, but I know it's not new to Liberty, and a few different structures have been done in the past, and Mr. Dangerfield's also here to answer any questions. But Clyde, do you want to kind of clarify the timeline and kind of what's supposed to take place with the vacancy?
Yes, I can do that. Board members, good evening. So by statute, the person that is responsible for filling a vacancy up until the next election, it would just be a temporary assignment, it's assigned to the county school superintendent. So Steve Watson is the person in that position right now, and it's his responsibility to fill vacancies until the next election. And as part of the process that he's set up is for there to be, the governing board is asked to present up to 3 candidates that are interested in being on the board. And we have 30 days from the time of being notified of the resignation, the vacancy. So I would recommend by the end of this month that you have something to the county schools office for that if you wish to. Now, you don't have to do this, but that's the process that he has set up, is to have 3 presented, up to 3. And then, though the statute doesn't require that he use those 3, the statute actually gives him complete discretion to choose another person if he wants to. And people can apply directly to the county schools office too if they want to. So you can go that way or through the governing board.
And depending on what the board directs us tonight and what we vote, Mrs. Camarada and I will be ready to post on our website any information for interested candidates as far as a letter of interest, a resume, why they want to be on the board, those kind of things. But President Todd and Vice President Parks and members of the board, we're here to discuss that with you now and take any direction from you with regards to the process. Later on in the agenda, there is an agenda item to potentially have a public forum if the board so chooses, where we could meet a deadline like Mr. Dangerfield is mentioning, where the board could interview, if you will, or meet the candidates. I understand that this has happened in the past, and then vote on perhaps 3 names that they'd like to move forward to the county superintendent for his decision. I don't believe that there's any specific timeline on their end of when that decision is made. And so again, it's here to discuss with the board, with legal counsel, so that we can kind of make sense of this. That's about a week old at this point.
Let me point out, if I can, the qualifications for a board member. They have to be 18 years old, citizen of the United States, registered to vote, a resident of the district for at least 1 year. They can't be an employee of the district or have a spouse that's an employee of the district. And they cannot serve on another school board at the same time. So, you've got Buckeye Union High School District here. You couldn't have someone that's already on that board serving on, asked to be serving on this board at the same time. So those are the statutory requirements.
And as Clyde mentioned, this person would fulfill the term until the rest of this year. And then that vacant spot would be on the November election for a 2-year spot. Is that correct?
They would finish the term of Mr. Guire.
Well, they would finish this year,
They'd finish this year, but
Yes.
then whoever's elected would just go to the rest of that term.
which would be a 2-year term.
That's right. And nothing would prevent that person from choosing to run to finish that term. Any questions?
Members, any questions?
I just want to say it's straightforward. I actually went through the process and.
You already have.
Oh yeah, it's comprehensive. I'll say just the interview process and the process with Steve Watson was intense. So anybody out there that wishes to put their name up, it is a process. But I'll tell you, this is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. So please put your name forward.
I think it's on the agenda for just a little later in this meeting to discuss the forum and the process for applications.
Perfect. So I think we'll ask questions when we get to that section to discuss our plans of what we'd like to do moving forward.
Right.
Okay. Great. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
I'll speak to you in a minute.
I did have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. What if no one volunteers?
That's a good question. I think Mr. Watson would then have to figure out how to appoint someone.
So the burden would be on the superintendent
It
of
would be, yes.
Maricopa
It
County.
would be on the county superintendent's burden, yep.
I do know of situations where when it's closer to an election, and I don't know if we're closer to the election, I mean, it's only 8 months away, where seats have gone vacant because the board can complete their business. So I don't know if that would be the case with the county, but we have a quorum that attends. We have 4 people, business moves on. So that, I suppose, could always be an option, because I have heard of boards that just go 1 member down until the next election, which is 6 months away.
And just as a reminder for the public and for the board, statute clearly specifies that the county superintendent can select anybody he wants. And in a previous situation in our district, he actually did appoint somebody who skipped the entire process and did not attend the forum, didn't put in an application. He went and found that person. So we're really at the mercy of that elected official. Okay, moving on, we'll move to 3.5, the SRO and the school safety officer update presentation. Dr. Mahorn.
President Todd, Vice President Parks, and governing board members, I'm here this evening to give you an update on the school safety officers / SROs. I want to start by saying I don't usually have this much text in a presentation, but I wanted to make sure that you have all the relevant background information on these grants, how we got them, when we applied, and all of that, so that you're fully informed of where we started and where we are today. So this started back in March of 2023. So this past spring, we applied for Westar and Estrella to have school counselors. Why just Westar and Estrella? Because they were the only 2 for this particular safety grant that were eligible, because they did not already have counselors, because all 5 of our other schools are Title I schools. So the only 2 schools that were eligible were Estrella and Westar to apply for these. This first round was just for counselors, and we were awarded, I believe it was benefits and salaries for counselors. That's why now all 7 of our schools do have school counselors. April, that was when the award was found out. That's when we found out about the award. And then April of 2023, also a Stronger Connections grant, which is a different grant than the original one we applied for, became available for Liberty to apply for an SRO at all 7 sites. I think I'm going in and out by going by the mic. So the Stronger Connections grant became available in April of 2023, and that one was for SRO, so an individual SRO being assigned to all 7 schools. April 2023, it was my predecessor, not me, that met with Buckeye and Goodyear PD and was told that neither has enough officers at this time to provide a full-time SRO at each one of our 7 campuses. At that time, that was again April 2023. May 2023, we still applied for the Stronger Connections grant. It was submitted. May 2023, we were awarded salary and benefits for 1 SRO position at Estrella and 1 at Westar for 3 years. However, officers were still not available. They're still not available to be one-on-one with our campuses. We received a call from Goodyear PD stating that many districts have started receiving awards from for school safety grants, and just wanted to make it clear that at that time there were no available police officers to fill an SRO position at this time. Of course, the Goodyear PD and Buckeye PDs, they are working with us and want to continue work with us, but they just didn't have the resources to provide a one-on-one for each of our campuses like we've asked and we will continue to ask. So I started in June. In December, we were notified that as a result of not having an SRO, we were able to request an SSO. And here's the difference between an SRO and an SSO. An SSO, school safety officer, is a sworn law enforcement officer, so they are a sworn police officer. When necessary, the SSO has the authority to intervene as a law enforcement officer. The SSO, and I listed a couple bullets of things, they can utilize their expertise and agency resources for intervention and prevention of potential crime. They collaborate with school personnel. They build relationships with students, parents, and staff that promote a positive image of law enforcement. So SSOs are sworn law enforcement. They are on their off duty. So they're sworn. So they might be part of Phoenix PD. They might be part of Tolleson PD. They might be part of Buckeye, Goodyear. They're sworn officers, but they are serving as a SSO on their off time when they are off duty. The SSO or the SRO is an on-duty officer assigned to one or more school campuses. We applied for both the School Safety Program Grant and the Stronger Connections Grant. We were just awarded the School Safety Program Grant, again, for Estrella, Mountain, and Westar. So they said, yes, you may have an SSO, but again, only for Estrella and Westar. Just to talk about safety, we do have an SRO from Buckeye PD that assists with Liberty, Blue Horizons, and Freedom, and we have one from Goodyear PD that assists with Estrella Mountain, Westar, and Las Brisas. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is assigned to Rainbow Valley. So that's where we are at right now. I will tell you, when I first learned that we were getting an SSO only for Estrella and Westar, I immediately responded back. This was through ADE, and I said, wait a minute, we applied for all 7. How did you only choose these 2? It didn't make sense to me that only 2 of our 7 campuses when we want all 7 campuses. And they said, you cannot be eligible. Only these 2 schools are eligible because they were eligible because they didn't have the full-time counselor in those 2. I continue to still push. I respect what ADE said, but we're still pushing. I have had phone calls, emails. I've asked Dr. Monroe, and he has also emailed. I had a meeting just this morning with ODM, and it's off-duty management, and it is the company that is responsible for filling our SSO positions. Because even though we were awarded 2 SSOs, we don't have one at all right now. And they gave me just this past Thursday access to look at the system that tracks. They put all the different shifts up that an officer could pick up for Liberty School District. And as of right now, no one has picked up any shifts. This is still of this morning. When I talked to them this morning, they said right now 80% of the SSO positions are filled, and he would expect that our 2 SSO positions would be filled in 2 to 3 weeks, given that they've made a lot of progress, he said, in the past 2 to 3 weeks, and that's brought them up to 80%. That was a lot of information on the timeline. Questions?
Board Member Kenyon, I know this is near and dear to your heart. I'm going to let you lead it off.
All right, I appreciate that, President Todd. Thank you, Dr. Mahorn, for this. I've been drumming this beat for a long time, even before I was on the board. I want our kids safe, as safe as possible, and the partnership with law enforcement being on each campus is near and dear to my heart. It does so many good things. There's so many benefits to it. A lot of it was presented here. I would ask, can you clarify on that slide, that second bullet point? Towards the end, it says we were not awarded any funding. What does that mean?
From the Stronger Connections grant that was applied for all 7 schools, that was the federal grant that we got 0 funding for.
Okay, that grant.
Yes.
The other one we received.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
No.
Are there, I'm glad to hear that it sounds like within the next couple weeks we should have those 2 positions filled. Like you, I'm a little frustrated it's only the 2 campuses. And to be frank, they're not the 2 campuses I would have picked, even though not that they don't need SROs or SSOs, but we have some other campuses that have higher crime rates, further away from police departments. I would ask that we go back to Tom Horn's office and say, hey, can you explain why in detail? Like, what's the reasoning? And they say we don't qualify. Why? Give me the statistics. Why? Because that is frustrating. As for this, the agency that we are working with, can administration or you reach out to maybe other agencies and see if there's other agencies available that do this? Or even, what would it take if we can't get Tom Horn's office to, give us the SSOs for all the schools? What's the cost of us employing them? What's the cost of us paying for that? Just as going forward, just to look at. I know money's tight, but safety of our kids is so important to me. So that's
I agree.
what
I
would
promise I was nice when I talked to them this morning, but my last question was, I've done so much, our superintendent, is there anything that our board can do to push this further along? Because I said in a very nice way, this is not acceptable. And I was told, not right now, but again, it's a drum that I will continue beating as well.
Okay. Last comment, I guess.
Yes.
I greatly thank our officers who come and watch our meetings here, keeping us safe, making sure that nothing crazy happens. So much, I've had a couple conversations with a number of different officers, and I've heard them tell me, oh yeah, we can fill those positions. There's a lot of guys who want overtime. So I would ask that we reach back out to Goodyear and Buckeye Police Department and see if there's a way we can combine forces on this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Board Member Bixler.
Yes, Dr. Mahorn, thank you very much. I know it's a struggle to get this. Just so I understand what the terminology means, you talk about availability to assist on campuses. Does that mean picking up a shift here and there? Is that what assist means?
So yes, we attended a webinar probably about 3 weeks ago, and one of the questions asked was, could there potentially be a different officer every single day? Yes, a different. So if I am Mr. Parks and I have Tuesdays off, I might pick up just shifts on Tuesdays. And if I'm Mr. Kenyon and I have Wednesdays off, I might pick up this SSO shifts just on Wednesdays. So potentially, of course, we're asking for our cake and eating it too. We want the same officer. We want an officer. However, I think we'd rather have someone rather than no one, even if it is someone for Monday, someone for Tuesdays, but potentially it could be somebody different each day.
Yeah, and that relationship piece is the biggest
huge.
piece for me on the SRO or SSO.
It's
It's all
huge.
about building that relationship so kids will talk to the police officer so that we can be preventative and act proactively as opposed to reactively.
For sure.
Last question. I thought I'd seen somewhere where there was some discussion about allowing former police retired to take the SSO and SRO jobs. Is that
I have
possible?
not seen that yet, but I will sure I'm willing to look into anything. And
Yeah, I
Dr.
thought
Monroe
I'd-
has been very helpful at kind of pushing along when I don't always get responses from, when you're dealing with big companies, big corporations, you don't always get a response, but I've asked Dr. Monroe, and he's been responsive, and which has really helped.
Yeah, I think I saw it on the news at some point that it was under discussion and so on, but I had never heard the outcome.
I think that's a great idea.
I think it's availability, it's an opportunity for sure.
Yes. Other questions?
Thank you. Board members, just for discussion, I'm wondering if we maybe should not agendize in a future meeting to, as a board, to send a letter forward. Sometimes from the elected body, it gives us a little more bite with agencies to get some deeper thought. That's not to belittle what our staff does, but we saw that with ADQ. They stumbled around for a long time trying to get an answer for ADQ. I made one phone call, and we had answers that our tank out there was not the problem that it was. So if you want to do that, Mr. Dangerfield, do we need to would need to agendize that to take action on it, correct? At a future meeting to send a letter from the board to give me, okay. So if you want to do that, we can add that to agenda topics at the end. Thank you for the work you've done on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is item 3.3, the K-3 focused literacy support for school year 24-25. And presenting will be Ms. Natasha Camp and Dr. Mahorn.
Good evening, Mr. President, Vice President, and governing board members. Tonight, I would like to present to you a plan of action specific to supporting K-3 literacy. A couple weeks ago, we did bring forward our mid-year Acadience data, in which we showed you number of students as well as percentage of students that were not yet at benchmark. And you as a board tasked us with thinking outside of the box and coming up with some solutions for that. So here is one idea. This slide really is just showing you some of the statistics about early literacy and how important students reading by the time they are in third grade is to, most importantly, their future, the jobs that they will have, and our society as a greater whole. We feel that drastic results require drastic measures. And again, like I said, you have charged us to think about what would it take to get all of our students to reading at benchmark as measured by Acadians. Here's our current reality. What I did here is I took the number of students in kindergarten through third grade at each of our campuses that were either below benchmark or well below benchmark. So you'll see in that first column, those are the actual number of students not reading at benchmark in kindergarten through third grade collectively. I also then let you know what that percentage is. And it's important to look at the percentage because our campuses do not have the same number of K-3 students. So you want to look and see how high that percentage of students is comparatively to the size of the school. Does that make sense? So Blue Horizons has a lot of students, right? Compared to Liberty, who has much fewer students. However, Liberty has significantly more students that are below benchmark or well below benchmark as a percentage. I just want to make sure we're clear on how we're reading that. Okay. The current FTE for our schools of reading interventionists is on the final column there. So I'm not going to read all of those to you. You can read this yourself. But if we were going across at Blue Horizons, quiz time, their current FTE for a reading interventionist is 2. Perfect. Here is a not good looking slide. I am so sorry for that. Okay, if you can see it. Oh, this is better. This is much better. Everybody just look this way. Okay, that is not, I'm sorry. Okay, so this is a proposal using a formula when you think about a reading interventionist, and really truly how many students can a reading interventionist serve, right? In their, we'll call it service load, right? So what I used here is a calculation of approximately 60 to 80 students being served by a reading interventionist, and recalculated that based on the numbers of students that were not yet at proficiency to give us an allocation of new FTE that potentially could support more students getting to, reading at benchmark. So what you would see in comparison is Blue Horizons in the last slide had 2 reading interventionists assigned. In this slide, using our formula, the proposal would be to have 2.5 reading interventionists assigned. So in the parentheses next to each of the numbers, you will see that I have delineated for you the change in FTE potentially if this was a formula that we wanted to use in order to significantly increase the support of our K-3 students and increasing their early literacy skills. So again, at the very bottom, I've given you a comparison of this year's current FTE of 9.5, and then a proposed increase in FTE, taking us all the way to 12.5. Again, putting more support in a targeted area based on a formulaic calculation and the numbers, right? The true number of students. You will see also that Estrella Mountain remains the same. So they have a system in place that is working, and they currently have 23% of their students that are not reading at benchmark. I guarantee that will be even less by the end of the school year. And so when we think about that RTI pyramid of the 80% and the 20%, their pyramid is the right way, right? Their triangle is pointed in the right direction. Some considerations for this proposal include increasing direct support and materials for our schools, our teachers, and our students, a strategic approach to K-3 literacy across all of our schools, really narrowing our focus and going after increasing that literacy and closing those gaps so that our teachers that are teaching in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade are not having to fill such tremendous gaps. I've said this before, I actually think it's unfair for those teachers. That's too large of a gap for them to fill. So with this plan, we are hopeful that those gaps are filled, and we're creating a strong foundation in our earliest grades so that our students are successful readers. Also, another consideration here in this proposal is that each of our schools would have a minimum of 1 reading interventionist. Additional interventionist support based on the data that we collected, and then just that 60 to 80 student service load is the way that I used the formula to determine the increase in FTE. Our reading interventionists are supervised by our principals and then trained and supported by educational services. We already have a job description in place, and a consideration as we move forward is also to think about a flexible approach. So I want to explain this just a little bit. If we have a minimum of 1 reading interventionist per campus, by increasing our FTE, we could potentially be flexible with moving support where it is needed based on the data. So if we take into consideration Estrella, right? Estrella doesn't need, right this second, does not need additional support. What happens if they do, right? How can we flexibly utilize FTE or our teachers, reading interventionists, to support at another campus if the data is showing that it is needed, Just something for us to consider. There is flexibility with this proposal. This is an action plan, and this is just the bare bones of an action plan. But we know if moving forward, this is a plan that you would like us to put in place. We need to recruit and retain the best teachers for these reading interventionists. They need to be highly qualified. They need to have a reading endorsement. We need to maintain our reading interventionists now that are highly effective. We also need to train the new reading interventionists that we would be onboarding. They need to be caught up on all of our reading intervention programs. We need to teach them how to do data analysis and tiered grouping of students, because our groups are flexible in our reading intervention model. They also need to be a part of our PLC process, those 4 guiding questions, working collaboratively with our collaborative teams to ask, what is it we want students to know and be able to do? How will we know they know it? What will we do if they do not know it? And what will we do if they do? Because we are still extending the learning of those that are on benchmark. And then finally, we need to monitor the effectiveness, right? So we continue to monitor the effectiveness by Ed Services coaching and providing feedback to our reading interventionists. Also, we track our reading intervention cycle data to show the number and the percentage of students that are mastering a targeted skill. And our goal is for students to move off of the phonics screener, for students to move off of needing intervention, right? That's the goal, is that nobody would need this extra support if we were doing it correctly and we were giving the right supports to the program. And then finally, meeting targets aligned to our K-3 learning progression, right? We know we are moving students from learning to read to reading to learn, right? And that's our ultimate goal. Dr. Mohorn's going to talk about some efficiencies that we have encountered to potentially help us with this decision being budget neutral.
I'll just grab this one that works. So hopefully this chart looks familiar to you. I'm glad it's in color because on mine it's in black and white. So this, and after an override, class sizes were brought down to approved in May 2023. As we examine the ebb and flow of enrollments across schools and future projections, we can show a better adherence to this board approved. So Natasha and I have spent the past 2 to 3 weeks meeting one-on-one with each of the building principals and looking at this chart and looking at their projected numbers in each grade and actually each class for next year. And what we've done is we've tightened up and better adhered to this staffing model that you have approved. And through that tightening up and stringent adherence, if you go to the next slide, sorry, that's okay. This is why this would be budget neutral. So currently we fund 3.5 reading interventionist FTEs out of M&O. We also currently fund 3.5 reading interventionist FTEs out of ESSER. We all know ESSER is going away, so we have to figure out what we're going to do about that. We also currently fund 2.5 reading interventionist FTEs out of Title I. So the total is 9.5, and Natasha showed on the chart before, the FTEs that we're currently funding out of M&O, ESSER, and Title I. So adhering to the projected staffing model, staffing efficiencies provide 6.5 FTEs already funded out of M&O to cover the cost of 6.5 reading interventionists. So for the school year 24-25, so this is for next year, we would then have the 12.5 reading interventionists assigned across all of our schools. Does that make sense, the 12.5, and how that's budget neutral? So we were able, just based on staffing efficiencies, when we met with each principal, can you go back to the chart, please? Sorry. We were looking at numbers projected for next year. We don't want to see blue. Blue means we're at least 6 under. So we also don't want to see red. So in Natasha and I's meeting with each principal, we talked about, okay, here's some changes we need to do to make sure that we're not in the red either, but we're in the green. And we were able to do that at many different campuses, and that would cause this to be budget neutral when we adhere to those, what you approved for the staffing model.
And any questions?
Of course, we have questions.
Vice President Parks.
Isn't there a statute as far as the number of reading evangelists based on the Title I? And like if we add one at a non-Title I, can you explain that?
Sure. I'm going to actually go back because I think now everybody look this way. Look this way. Do not look at that. Okay. So yes, Mr. Parks, Title I schools receive more. The best way for me to describe that is Title I schools receive more. So if you make a decision as a district collectively, right, to increase reading interventionists, your Title I schools must have more support than your non-Title I schools. So a perfect example of that would be Westar. If we're looking over here, Westar currently has one. We're proposing that they would potentially increase by a half of an FTE. Everybody see that? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that means that your Title I schools have to increase at least by a half FTE. Make sense? So they already had more. If we go back one more slide, our Title I schools, let me point them out to you: Blue Horizons, Freedom, Las Brisas, Liberty, Rainbow Valley already have more. Liberty's a little bit tricky because they don't have quite enough title funding, right? They lost a lot of students when we built Blue Horizons. So they're a little bit tricky, but I still have to watch them very closely to make sure that they also have more. So they have a reading para. Our Blue Horizons also has a reading para. Freedom does, Las Brisas, and also Rainbow Valley. So you're spot on. Once we make an adjustment to a non-Title I school, we must show that we are doing more for our titles.
Right. By the way, I would preface this by saying, look, thank you for going outside the box on this and working so hard on it. This right now, as far as I'm concerned, this is my priority. And I don't care if we get into budget. I don't care. It's the number one priority. And I'll just put it this way. If we can't get our proficiencies up, we don't dare go out and ask the public for more money. Okay, it's not coming. We can't grow our school. We can't do what we need to do. This has to be our primary focus. I got to be careful. This is a great start. I think we can do better. And what I'm going to propose in the agenda item is maybe sit down and let's work this out. Even if we've got to add a couple positions, because one of the things that concerns me is the non-permanent assignments. I don't care for that. I think students need consistency. So if we can find a way, I don't know what that number is based on the Title I issue. But I think we can do better. And personally, I'd like to see two at each campus. We've got 3 tiers. So, I can say the teacher has one. If we don't have support for those 2 other tiers, I think we're going to find ourselves in trouble. I really appreciate you guys went budget neutral on this, but if I have to move everything off the table and make this the priority, that's where I'll go. Okay? So thank you again. I think you did a great job on this, and we'll move forward. Thank you.
Board Member Bixler.
Yes, I also want to talk a little bit about the permanency of the position. I do understand the reality of staffing, and where you have a fire, you're gonna have to go put it out. So I understand why it's being suggested this not be a permanent assignment on the campus. Obviously, the perfect world, it would be a permanent assignment, but I understand the realities of it. I just would like for us to enter into any conversation about moving between campuses for our staff, that we do that with heart. We talk to that staff member and see where they are on that idea. Second thing I would like to bring up is that Estrella Mountain has a terrific looking set of numbers right there. I mean, but you got to be real careful of that in that number, because that achievement was made by the use of a lot of volunteers. The tour that we did over at Estrella Mountain did show us the number of, at least the commitment by the parents to volunteer on that campus to help the literacy of their children. So when you look at Estrella Mountain, it doesn't look like it has as much need as the others. Be careful with that, because right now they are doing a great deal with volunteers on that campus. And finally, and this comes from my days as a middle school principal, early intervention K-3 is not a brand new idea. That's been around for a very long time. And I have the same question for us today as I did then. What do I do with that 8th grader that's reading at the 3rd grade level?
Well, I can speak to, or do you want me to answer that, or was that a rhetorical question? Maybe I shouldn't have even started, right?
Maybe the better way is just keep this in the back of your mind.
Okay.
Because I agree, K-3 early intervention is probably the direction to go at this point, but what do we do with that 8th grader?
Thank you.
Pardon me. How do we help that 8th grader?
Board Member Kenyon.
Yeah, thank you for this. It's great to see. I echo Board Member Parks. It'd be great to see one, additional one at each campus, and yeah, if we add, well, I'm not going to get into numbers right now, but correct me if I'm wrong. If we have one full-time reading interventionist at each campus currently, those would be the positions that I would think would remain in place, while the new ones coming on board, looks like we would be looking at 3, would be more we'll call them the floaters. Is that sound accurate, or?
Yes, I think that's a way you can look at it. And again, this is just a proposal. We can make changes to it. That could be a way that you look at it. You could also look at it as triage, right? You have 2 campuses that are needing a tremendous amount of support, and so you triage the situation, right? What I would not want to get into is removing all support from one campus. That's just playing whack-a-mole, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions, and my board docs is acting goofy, so I'm going to look to my drive where I first typed the questions. So our reading interventionists, they're required to have an endorsement, correct? Okay.
They are, yes.
So do all of our current interventionists have an endorsement?
They do not. We have one that is working towards, and if they are not showing progress on reaching or obtaining their reading endorsement, proper qualifications, then they will need to be reassigned.
Okay, so that's helpful. Thanks. I think I echo the same concerns as Vice President. I wouldn't say they're concerns; they're goals, and they're where we want to go. But I am a little bit concerned with the shuffle and I guess the fine print of this proposal. Some teachers, and one thing that we look at here is ultimately they're our employees. If we need them to go somewhere, we move them. However, when teachers are paid as little as they're paid, one thing we like to do is try to give them the ability to teach where their child is a student.
Sure.
And as our district grows, I just went from West Star to Blue Horizon a couple days ago, and it's you do it a couple times a week. It's a trek. I mean, it really. We used to be able to bounce between schools real easy. It's not like that anymore. So if somebody starts at West Star and they're planning on being there, and that's their contract, and then they get moved to Blue Horizons for a while, that can create a significant impact on the staff. And I spoke to some reading interventionists. That's a concern. So I think what would be really good to do is, and I support this 100%, bringing more in, but to have a work session with all the reading interventionists and make sure that we're on the same page and we don't have something out there that they may have a better fix for. We've done this really quick because the board took pretty aggressive steps to say, get this done, and I commend you for that. However, I'm comfortable approving hiring these folks, and I want to specify, because we got a pretty nasty email over the weekend that unfortunately that person's spouse was late to the meeting and didn't hear that this was a budget neutral position, so we can move forward on this. So there's probably a lot of things being said about the budget that is inaccurate. You got to be on time for the meetings, hear all the meetings to be able to give feedback. Enough of that. But I do have that concern that if we're moving them, it becomes a challenge. And I want to make sure that we're doing this right. And those folks are in the trenches, more so than anybody on the cabinet, more so than anybody in the district office. So I think we want to bring them in. And again, this board sitting before you has always been willing to hear very well from folks. So I think we should do that to work out some of the fine print. I think also that, are we looking at making everybody reapply or be reassigned to a classroom position if they're not highly qualified? In this position, I think our hiring practices need to be highly qualified, because the numbers we keep seeing, and thank you for the state of Arizona for thinking somewhere around 36% is a great number. I don't know anywhere else where you can perform 36% and cheer. State of Arizona thinks that's okay. I think we need to make sure we have highly qualified, not entry level. And that may mean that we lose a few who have to go back to the classroom for a while, or maybe become a second person to mentor up. But we should have no campus that has anybody that's not endorsed or isn't highly qualified in this with some true experience. I want them to be able to say, and this is where my goal for the district is, our staff needs to be able to say, I've seen that. You've heard the old been there, done that, have the t-shirt. I want them to say been there, done that, have the tuxedo. They've seen it more than once. They've been there. Whether it's a school principal, whether it's a reading interventionist, I certainly want to have a fostered program where we have a mentorship and we bring people forward. But I think the fine print is crazy. It's not crazy. It just has some work that we can work on. And then last but not least, I think, again, just based on need, we need to figure out where that need is, because so often, and again, I've said this many times, but when we set policy, we're setting policy for the future. Nothing we do today really has an effect today. But I think we need to have benchmarks so we don't have, if we have a different person at any point in a position of authority, which is just given that over the next however long this stays in place, we may have a change. They don't just willy-nilly start making their own choices. So we need to identify as a board a benchmark. At this point, this is when we trigger a move or something of that nature. Because to your point, otherwise it is just a game of whack-a-mole, and it changes constantly. I think the reading interventionists, much like our SRO situation, they build relationship with the students, and sometimes you're just more comfortable. And for a child that's already struggling, who has some confidence in this RI, and all of a sudden we just literally pull that student away. So often these students that are underperforming have some pretty rough home lives as well, and they've had a lot of trauma. We got to be very careful that we're not adding to that. So I would ask that we talk to the reading interventionists, and I must apologize. I've said interventionalist several times, and I'm trying to break that habit. So interventionist, but I think we should talk to them about that. And we may have some who don't have students in the district, and they're the perfect ones who would say, can we put you in this halftime position where you're between two schools? But we need to make sure that we're treating our staff like people and not like numbers. And there's some very resounding surveys that have come out recently and some data that talks about 97%. That's one of their biggest tricks is one of their biggest needs and wants is to be treated like a person and not a number. And there's times where we just have to say, for the good of the department, for the good of the school district, you got to move. You're going to have to go. But we should take that very carefully. And again, when we have an open-ended fine print here, anybody in the future can interpret that however they want. And these interpretations shouldn't just be based off of however somebody down the road thinks it is, but they should be set in concrete. So I would ask that we greatly look at that. Now, some of my notes here are coming up in, and then I guess along these lines with this, and again, I want to fund these positions, and I think the clear message, well, I'm confident we'll say that tonight, is the current reading interventionist jobs are safe. We're going to do what we can, and I commend the staff for figuring out a way to do this ahead of the budget where it doesn't affect the budget. It was really nice to see that come off, and we're no longer fighting for that.
I agree.
So that's great, but we want to look very specifically. Hang on, let me try to pull this back up again because board docs is a little slow here tonight. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge to fill 12.5 positions with qualified people. So I don't want to give the approach to the public and to the staff. We're bringing these people on. If we don't have a true plan to make it happen, we can all say, "Oh, I'm bringing the greatest baseball player onto the team." But if that baseball player is not available because he just got signed by the LA Dodgers for a ridiculous amount of money, we can't make that promise. So, and then the professional development that we're offering them, again, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but I don't see that there's PD, and I've heard from reading interventionists that there's really not much PD for them. And so our younger, less experienced are not really getting a lot of professional development, and they're kind of on their own at a lot of campuses. So our lower level, and only lower level because they're new at this, isn't getting that extra experience, that extra mentorship. So when we look at these programs, it's a lot more than just throwing up some fancy slides. It's really coming up with a plan and executing against that. So again, I think a work session is important. I think it is great that we bring these on. It has no effect, because it's budget neutral, has no effect on the 2024-25 school year, and that's why we can do this now. It's critical that we hire people early on. If we're late to the game, we're going to lose. Every time. That's the only guarantee in education is if we're late to the game, we'll lose. Probably the other guarantee is if we don't fill positions at all, we're in trouble. But those are my concerns, and I would ask this board that we establish a work session soon, probably not on a school board night, but on another night, just so that we can hear from them and open up that dialogue, and we make sure that we're meeting all the needs of this program, and it gives them that dialogue. So.
President Todd, if I could. So just a few comments from me. We can certainly study the work study session, maybe on a different night than the board night. That can be a little more collaborative as we look at maybe a more robust of what the board is telling us. I would say that, okay, we have on March 2nd, we have a job fair. So that would be an opportunity for us to be able to post some of these positions. So maybe sometime before then we can have this discussion so we can get out and find these people. So I think that would be really good. I appreciate the board's response. We've tried to be really creative on how we're doing this, and we can always do more. Absolutely. And as we go into this summer and we go into strategic planning and all those things, we want to put our resources behind where our priorities are. And it's refreshing to hear how important this is to the board members. So I look forward to engaging more with the reading interventionist and looking at this. I appreciate Stephanie and Natasha's work. I want the board to know that we are going through a budget prioritization process. However, I just want to say, because you saw it here, that Beth, myself, members of the cabinet, we're committed to looking at efficiencies throughout our whole system. And when I say efficiencies, is within our current budget, are there ways we can do things better and save money and have money? And sometimes it takes someone else to look at the family budget to say, hey, you guys should think about A, B, and C, and you could save this much a month. And so we're looking with a very critical eye, I just want you to know, at all of our, whether it's overtime or substitute usage or materials or some of our special ed accounts, to see where this money can be. So it's not part of the budget priority, because to your point, President Todd, we know It's the elephant in the room. It's what we all want. So I just wanted to bring that up to the board so you know of our commitment to bring these things and find the resources to put behind them. So we'll look and try and get a board's work study session on a day. We may have a work study session with a board vacancy. So we'll be creative to find a time when we can bring in the reading interventionist and do this prior to March 2nd. So with that being said, President Todd, when we get to that agenda item, if the board wants to, table it, or if the board wants to amend a motion or at least approve it, so our current reading intervention knows, I'll leave that up to the board, whatever you guys want to do.
Okay, thank you. Members, any more questions? Okay, moving on. Looks like we're on to the call to the public, item 4.1. Just a reminder, public, you have 3 minutes. When your time has expired, we ask that you please stop. Our IT department will mute the microphones at 3 minutes, and we'll be done. Our first speaker, and also as a reminder, it's most cases the board cannot respond back to you. So for those who are new in the room, rest assured we hear what you're saying. It's just the law. There's very, very limited opportunities where we're legally allowed to respond back. With that, our first speaker tonight will be Julie Hout.
Test.
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, and members of the board, I'm looking forward to your discussion tonight on expansion of the multi-age gifted program at item 6.2 on the agenda. As you know, every child is entitled to a free and public education. This includes providing an education at each child's level of learning. Some children are below benchmark, some are at benchmark, and some are above benchmark for their grade level. You also know that I have been a huge advocate in this district for rethinking the level and type of services provided to our K-3 students in ELA and math to ensure that every student is at least at benchmark at the end of the school year. I shared my concerns about the number of students not at benchmark and provided suggested actions at one of the budget committee meetings a month ago. At the last board meeting, you all saw the report on the number and percentage of students in this district at each of those benchmark levels in ELA and math. You again saw those numbers earlier tonight for ELA, but not math. You again saw those There is no doubt that the need for services to get students at least to grade level benchmark is great. I look forward to your discussion during item 6.1 on the agenda and encourage you to improve the plan for K-3 literacy. It is a start for providing services for ELA, and the next focus needs to be on math to get all students to benchmark in math as well. Because every student should be taught and challenged at their level, our district also needs to provide services for those students that are at or above benchmark. They should not be left behind just because they are meeting the state requirements. The district's multi-age gifted program and services allow students to work at their level. In most cases, the students in the MAG classroom are working 1 to 3 grade levels beyond their current grade level. These services are only provided to students in grades 4 through 8. We also need to consider those students in K-3 that deserve to be challenged and accelerated in their learning abilities as well. There is no reason their learning should remain stagnant just because they are at benchmark. I encourage you to think about all students and expanding the opportunities to gifted students as well as students that are at or above benchmark. Further, I challenge you to put plans in motion for developing an honors academy within the next 2 years in this district for students that need to be challenged beyond their current grade level. Most districts focus their budget monies on helping students below benchmark. Let's not be one of those districts, but rather let's be a district to consider budget monies for all students. Thank you for listening.
Next speaker will be Kelly Zimmerman.
Good evening. I want to bring two things to the public's attention tonight.
First, the planning principal for School 8. I think it's very interesting that the district advertised and is interviewing for a position that has not been brought before the board for a vote as a budget interest. Additionally, a planning principal job description, as outlined in policy GCA, would need to be created or updated, and that was never brought before the board to vote on before this position was posted. There is also no salary schedule posted for a planning principal. It only leads me to believe, and the rest of the public to believe, that the board business is being done behind closed doors and not in the public as it is outlined by state statute. It appears that conversations happen between the board, I'd guess 3, and district administration that they would approve this position at a later time and just move forward. This board openly breaks open meeting law, and there is no other way to explain how the district moved forward on this position without any direction from the board. I think it's absolutely absurd that the board would spend any money on a position that does not involve any interaction with children in a year when we are having to make tough decisions and schools could be losing reading interventionists who play a vital role in our schools working with children every single day. Interestingly enough, a parent on the budget committee relayed to me that this did not make it above the line as a budget priority. So if the board moves forward with this position, it will not be with the support of the majority of the committee. Secondly is item 6.2 on the agenda, the expansion of the gifted program. I just wanted to be very clear to the public, this board's actions and their words do not line up. They claim to care about special education, that it's a priority of theirs, yet there has not been one agenda at any meeting to reflect that. But here we are, once again, talking about gifted education, which is 4% of the entire district population, and the MAG program specifically that they're referring to here is less than 1% of the entire district population. One of the 2 MAG positions has remained vacant all year long. So why would you try to expand a program when you can't even fill one of the 2 positions for this program that you currently have? It is a blatant slap in the face to special education students, teachers, and parents across this district that you have not made their education, their right to services, and their right to qualified staff your priority. Just like the planning principle for School 8, this did not make the cut for the budget committee either. Although it is absolutely the board's right not to follow the budget committee's suggestions, why bother having it? You're wasting people's times. It's clear time and time again that the board only cares about their agenda and only listens to a very select few people that fits the narrative that they have. The truth is that the enrollment in this district is down, and the board can only look at themselves and the decisions they have made, because the demographer was very clear that we were supposed to see growth, and we haven't seen any.
Our next speaker is Elena Stonewall. Okay, she's not present. Next will be Angela Hamilton.
Good evening, board members. I would just like to highlight a few things. First, as far as the multi-age gifted program goes, as you all are aware, the Arizona State Legislature appropriated $850,000 toward the cost of testing for gifted education. That is quite an impressive investment. I would like to say that Liberty has successfully leveraged this option and identified even more gifted students, much to the credit of Liberty. The Arizona State Legislature made this critical investment in identifying gifted children. It's Liberty's turn now, and an opportunity and an obligation to further the initial investment by expanding the multi-age gifted program to meet the needs of younger gifted children, K through 3. They should not be left behind. Success is planning ahead to meet the needs of these children. Thank you very much.
Next item will be 5.1, the consent.
Excuse me,
agenda.
Board President Michael. I received another call to the public if you'd like to.
Was that prior to the start of the meeting?
No, it was at 7:19.
Okay, it's unfortunately we can't do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next will be item 5, which is our consent agenda. Members, I'll take a motion, or if you have something you'd like pulled, you can include that in your motion.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the consent agenda as written.
Second?
You have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. When I call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member, Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that proof. 4 yes, 0 no's. Next, we'll be moving into section 6, our general business. 6.1, discussion and consideration to approve K-3 focused literacy support for school year 24-25. Ms. Camp and Dr. Mahorn.
As previously presented, it is recommended that the governing board approve the K-3 focused literacy support for school year 24-25.
Mr. President, I motion to approve the K-3 reading interventionist hires and table the focused literacy support proposal pending board work study session with district RIs for discussion and review.
Have a second.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the positions for 24-25. And we will table for further discussion with the RIs after our work session for the K-3 focused literacy section. Is that the correct motion?
Yes, yes, Mr. President.
When I, hang on, Ms. Camp's got a question.
I just want to clarify the proposed FTEs.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and just to reaffirm, that is, we have a motion second, so we're good in discussion here. That is budget neutral moving into the next year. 100% guaranteed for sure. Okay. I should clarify that, make it easy. All right, members, when I call your name, please specify your vote. Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
As long as we implement with heart and it's 12.5, I vote aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that proof. 4 yes, 0 no. Next up will be 6.2, the multi-age gifted program expansion discussion. Ms. Camp.
So President Todd and Vice President Parks, members of the board, let me jump in here and set up Natasha. We want to entertain questions and directions from the board with regards to our expansion for the multi-age gifted. I know has come up before. When I say expansion, I don't know if there's a better word to use, but we are referring to, we haven't been able to fill both of our FTEs this year. As you know, we're on a mission to fill both of them. Mrs. Crowley has been nice enough to take on, an FTE and more this year. However, we're looking to expand, when we talk about expansion, pending the board's direction, into younger grade levels. So really, I probably should have clarified that. What we'd like to talk about, get input and questions from the board, is just kind of the direction that we want to go, because administration was considering, with Mrs. Crowley, expanding our MAG program to lower grades to give more students the opportunity and families that option, which doesn't necessarily mean an increase in FTEs, obviously, because right now we only have one and we're still trying to fill the second. So I just wanted to say that off the top, as Natasha kind of gives you a few highlights of things we've been talking about, including planning with Mrs. Crowley to bring before the board. She wasn't able to be here tonight because she had another commitment. So Mrs. Camp.
Sure. So I will just give you a couple of thoughts from district administration, and then I would like to hear from the governing board, as this was a proposed agenda item from the board. We have met with Mrs. Crowley, actually the three of us, Dr. Mohorn, as well as Dr. Monroe and myself. She is willing to take on 4th through 8th grade MAG again next year. And we were able to discuss how we would potentially bring on a 2-3 multi-age gifted teacher to expand our reach of the MAG program. So this would not be an additional FTE. This would remain with our 2 FTEs. We have not found great success in hiring for the 7-8. You see that position is still vacant, although we have done an extensive amount of recruiting. As a matter of fact, we sent several staff members, gifted leads, and our gifted coordinators here at the district office to the Arizona Gifted and Talented Conference, AAGT. I'm saying the acronym in my head. And we had a table there. We were recruiting for gifted teachers to our district, and specifically a multi-age gifted teacher. We were actually recruiting for both a 7-8 and a 2-3. You know, let's just get word out to cast our net even farther to get more highly qualified teachers to join our amazing team. Currently at West Star alone, as well as at our other schools, we have calculated that we do have an increase in identified gifted students at the current first grade and second grade level. I accredit that to our testing at kindergarten. We've done that now for at least the last 5 years that I have been here. So we are finding students at an earlier age, right, that are already showing signs and areas of giftedness. And we do not currently have an option for our younger students to have a self-contained option of gifted services where only gifted students are housed. And this would provide us with an opportunity to potentially do that. We've talked about our gifted scope and sequence. We've brought forward our gifted scope and sequence and also received additional parental input on our gifted scope and sequence, in which we tabled it in order to make sure that we were receiving everyone's input on the gifted scope and sequence. If there are changes that are being made to the multi-age gifted program, we want to make sure that we update that in the gifted scope and sequence to then bring back to you. I think those are some of the information that I wanted to just share with you.
Yeah, let me highlight a few others. We've talked about opening transportation options a little more robustly for parents. We do have buses that go to all of our schools. And is there a way where parents could have an option for when the bus is already at that school to have a student get on the bus to travel to the program if the parents were to choose that? And really trying to advertise the program and expand it a lot more. Make sure that people know that the program is there at West Star. Now, as we talked about with the board in a past study session, West Star is growing. So there may be a need to move our MAG program and a lot of our self-contained programs in the next year or two, especially when we open school number 8. But I think for parents who have students that have been identified as gifted, to advertise to them, to have a parent meeting so that they know of a potential option would be something that may be of high interest to parents from not just the West Star and Estrella area, but around the district. So these are some of the things that we have been discussing that we wanted to bring to the board. We're looking forward to some summer planning this year to really align a lot of our PD in a lot of the areas, especially with gifted, to make that more robust for our cluster teachers and for our MAG teachers to make sure that they have support as well. So as Natasha said, I know the board has kind of requested this, and this is kind of where we're at. And so we want to see what questions the board has and direction as we kind of jump into this area more with expanding the MAG program for younger families.
Dr. Moreau, if I may just also clarify, the board requested this topic long before the budget committee started. This has been something that has been in the works for years. For 20 years, this district has talked about expanding the MAG program. So this is nothing new. This is still an exploratory discussion. There's no decisions being made tonight, but it is absolutely something that we are looking at. And when we look at other places, such as Paradise Valley, they have probably nationally renowned program that started long ago with a few small classes that has grown to be amazing. And Ms. Camp, I can see by your head nod, it's there. This, for me, is not an attempt to try to override a budget committee. But I will say also, as we talk about small percentages, as I've been all over this district asking people, have you been spoke to by the budget committee? Less than 1% have been spoke to by the budget committee. So that committee seems to be isolated in a very small manner of their personal interest and is not getting out real wide. So I commend you guys for continuing to bring this forward so that we can look at this and make make good decisions. With that, I'll open up any questions you all may have from the board.
Dr. Monroe, isn't the MAG program part of our special ed program? Isn't it part of a special ed program? I mean, isn't it under the same mandate?
That's how you want to take that one. It's kind of yes and no. I mean,
I'm going to say in this district, it is not.
Okay. So I just, one of the things is, and this is clear, I mean, there's plenty of research out there. If a child's not challenged, they become disengaged very quickly. They get bored, and they end up becoming a low performing student. I don't think that's where we want. By the way, I know this firsthand. And I don't want to see any student go through that. I think we need as much emphasis put in the MAG program as we do in special ed. I think, one of our mandates is to serve all students. So we can't leave a group out just because it's inconvenient. I think the expansion of this program is long overdue, and I will support it.
Board Member Bixler.
Yeah, I want to applaud the fact that we have a way to identify students at that low level at K3. I know in the past that was always kind of a hard thing because there really wasn't anything in place that allowed us to make a definitive statement about giftedness and talentedness, especially at that grade level, simply because of the abstract reasoning of the student at that point. It was just very difficult. So congratulations on finding a way to do that. That's a really big step. But that does lead to my question, which is the scope and sequence. What exactly? I know most gifted programs, the state standard is what you teach. You just teach it in a way that expands for the needs of that student. Is that similar to what we're anticipating for the K3 scope and sequence? And can you tell me what it would look like? Give me an example. I know that's a bad question because you haven't prepared, but is there some visible thing you can tell me?
I think that it would be similar to what we are offering our 4 through 8. So we did speak or hear about some individualized learning and opportunities for increased choice in their learning. I think we would model it similarly to what we do in 4-8.
Yeah, the one concern I have is that it's more work. That's not what I want to see in the gifted program. I don't think we penalize kids by their giftedness and ask them to do more work than the other kids. It needs to be something else, and I know you understand that. So I'm interested to see how this goes.
Board Member Kenyon.
I'll echo, again, Board Member Parks' comments. I think that this is great. We do focus heavily on special education and those who are below benchmark. We saw a presentation tonight, and this board gets kind of hard on the numbers. We want those numbers to come up, right? Those who are below. Those who are above do need that challenge. I'm blessed to have very good kids, and they're straight A kids, and they come home and, what'd you learn today? Nothing. Where's the incentive, right? So really tapping into those kids is just huge, and helping them grow to all they can be. Yeah, I'm very supportive of this program, so thank you. Keep it up.
I have a few questions. We have a number of students in our district who are, pardon me for not knowing the best, but severe special ed that we even outsource outside of our district, correct? And what percentage is that?
Maybe put Kay on the spot here.
I don't know what.
I don't know.
We have 11 kids that are outsourced to
D placement.
So we make plans for 11 that need services, and we have people who are complaining about giving services to 40 or more. I think that's important. I am personally a benefactor, I guess, of the MAG program. My daughter started it in 2nd grade. Let me reiterate, 2nd grade. This district has gone backwards over the years by not offering it in 2nd grade any longer. I've said this many times, and all the way through college, she's still calling on her MAG teacher to get help. Excuse me, ma'am, we're conducting a business meeting and you need to be quiet. The gifted cluster model does not seem to be working very well, in just putting it out there. In the general ed classes, when we talk to the teachers, they say we don't really have time to do much differentiation for them. So for the students who need the extra programming, whether it's severe, whether it's normal special ed, whether it's self-contained special ed, I think we should look at that. My question is, does the MAG program cost this district really any more than a special ed class or a general ed class? Because we have a couple teachers. Right now we have one. We have had two in the past. Is there really any increased cost of the MAG program?
You know, being put on the spot, I would have to think real carefully about that. Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know. You have
Well,
something,
I
Natasha?
think it's important to know that special education students, right, do bring a weighted increase, and I'm looking at you for this, a weighted increase to their per pupil allocation. Gifted, and I think I've shown this to you before, just recently came with a group B weight, but it is 0.00 something. So when you ask, is it a cost? Yes.
Well, every student is a cost, though.
Well, every teacher,
Right.
right? Every teacher is a cost. However, special education teachers and the support that we provide for our special education students are significantly offset by the per pupil allocation depending on the level of service. Am I saying that correctly, Kay?
Correct. And then there's also our grant funding has to be matched. So any grant funding we
You need to come to the microphone so we have.
I just wanted to give you the full picture.
So they're weighted. So some of the kids, even the ones we outsource, we still get the funding for them. Even though we outsource them, we get that funding.
But we don't get all of that funding.
Yeah, we do.
We get $80,000 for some of those students because I've been told by previous administration we don't.
We get the funding that it's allotted. They don't
you're
get
right,
any
right.
of the funding.
So they
which
cost a
doesn't-
lot more.
Which
Right.
doesn't always cover it, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Nowhere close.
No, we get whatever that funding is
Right.
that they would get here. They don't get any of our funding for
Right.
that because we paid them. But the other thing we do is any grant funding we get, it has to be matched by our M&O. So the only thing is, I think you just have to remember that there are laws that regulate it more so, unfortunately.
On the special ed side.
Special ed
Sure, I
side.
understand that.
And then there's also the funding. We do get more funding than a regular student or a gifted student. So we always look at it as there's funding attached to SPED, and then there's not as much funding attached to gifted. So, I'm not saying either one is more or better. I'm just saying that we do get funding.
My thoughts are still we need to serve every child. And
Of
if we
course.
have 40 students in this district
Mhm.
who are on the upper end or the lower end or somewhere in the middle, they need to be serviced.
And we just have to follow all the regulations for
Right.
everything.
And we're not trying to skirt any of that, but we need to recognize the full potential of every student. And if we're not, then we are stealing an education from those students and we are ripping off the taxpayer. And that's not acceptable. It just is not something that I can see it is right. We have some marvelous students in the district. I'm encouraged from long discussions, 20 years of this, that we're looking at transportation as an opportunity. We moved this program started at Liberty. It moved to West Star because at the time, demographically, that was where most of the gifted students were at. That's changing, and by this district implementing and the state implementing money and time to say they want to do more gifted testing at an earlier age, I really feel it's at a disadvantage to the students when we weren't testing that young. Now we're seeing that. So I continue to be a supporter of all students. I continue to see it. I would be, I'm curious to see more discussion. I'd like to see more parents attend. And if you're a gifted parent, you know, we'd like to hear your stories. I think, Ms. Lovelace, you're in the back, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but you've been at Westar for a long time, and you've seen the benefits. So if you'll step up and tell us what you see of the gifted program down there, I think it helps everybody to understand.
Yes, we do have a great gifted program at Westar. I would say that in one area that I might not be in 100% agreement with you, President Todd, is I do think we have some extremely talented cluster teachers like Mrs. McCubbins, Mrs. Backus, who just attended the gifted conference, which she applauded, and I appreciate the opportunity for them. She has currently 11 gifted students in her classroom currently, and Mrs. Crowley is doing a great job supporting those cluster teachers. I think what's kind of hindered that support has been because she took on the second position. She doesn't have all that planning time. The initial model of that was going to be when she wasn't with students, when her kids were pushing out, she was going to be pushing in the younger classrooms and supporting those cluster teachers. And now we lack that support. But yes, Westar is very proud of the gifted service. I agree with you that we need to service students on both ends. I have a son who's gifted in 3 areas. I have a grandson at Westar who is gifted. And I agree that they need to be equally serviced to our special education students. We're equally supportive. All students deserve to learn at high levels and have a year's worth of growth, whether they start below level or above level. So that means our gifted kids, I agree with Mr. Parks that smart kids who are bored struggle just as much as low kids who are bored, right? So yes, all kids need to learn at high levels. So
thank you. Members, any further discussion?
Can I just add one thing?
You may.
I think it's also important to realize that this is a family choice, right? So when we have options for families, this may be appropriate for some, and this may not be appropriate for others. So I think what I love the most about this district is that we continue to provide our families with options that may be best for them, whether it's a signature program, whether it's the multi-age gifted program, whether it's the cluster model. These are options that families can take advantage of or not.
Thank you. Last question is, we have some campuses we heard tonight that have 2 signature programs. Could this not be adopted as a signature program? It's an opt-in, much like any other signature program where some children go from out of boundaries. So has that been looked at?
I think we've got lots of options on the table.
I think, again, I would like to hear from those who are opposed to this and those who are supportive of it. So my preference, again, would be have some sort of a forum and an open mic night to hear a little bit more from teachers, students, parents, anybody else. So,
Mr. President, I have one more question, if I can have the floor.
Go ahead.
I think this is also a really good opportunity to bring additional families and parents into our community. You know, it's anything we can do as a school district to attract students, I think is a plus. And I see the return on this investment. I do. So thank you.
Okay. Our next item will be 6.3, discussion consideration to approve the addition of liquidated damages to the certified teacher contract. Dr. Mahorn.
President Todd, Vice President Parks, Governing Board. Before you see an addition that we are proposing to the language for the contracted teachers, and it is for liquidated damages. I won't read that whole paragraph to you. I will give you a couple instances of why we are asking for this. We have had just this year, since I've been here, and it's only been about 8 months now, we have had teachers that just have abandoned their contract, given us no reason, just said, I'm not coming back tomorrow. And that, first and foremost, really hurts kids. This is not being proposed as a punishment or a consequence. There, of course, we will still look at case-by-case basis. We will, exceptions, we'll think of, illness, if a spouse gets transferred, if somebody gets a promotion. It's not hard, fast, and true. There are exceptions to this, but we are asking that this language, and this is language proposed that I also got from Mr. Dangerfield, to add to the contracts that will be brought before you on the 26th, so at the next meeting. Any questions?
Members, any questions? Vice President Parks. Board Member Bixler.
Just a statement. Although there's a great deal of science in teaching, it's really an art, and it's not for everybody. It's a really, really hard job, and most of the time you don't know if you can do it until you try. I am not in support of language that would penalize teachers who, and I have been in a position where we had to replace staff in the middle of a school year. It's not easy. It's not good for the kids. It's not good for the administration. Not good for anybody. But I cannot support this language.
Board Member Kenyon.
Reading through it, it does seem like the number might be a little bit high. Can the administration explain where that number came from?
Yes, I surveyed my colleagues all across the West Valley, and the $2,500 was what the West Valley, this is what the liquidated damages are.
So there's other districts that have this wording in
almost every district that I surveyed. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Member Kenyon, I would say when I came to the district and saw that there was no language, that was really took me back, because I would say Liberty was an outlier in not having that language. I understand the board's feelings and sentiments. However, hopefully this is a deterrent. As I look as a superintendent, I think about the students, and we want to work with our staff and we want to support them. And but when a teacher leaves in November, that student is hurt because of the relationship they built has been abandoned. And so, like Stephanie said, we'll work with teachers. We can find suitable replacements if you can hold on as long as you can. But this isn't meant to be punitive. But in my view, hopefully it's an extra deterrent. When someone signs their contract, they understand just what signing a contract means. And the bigger meaning is don't let down our kids. You know what I mean? Teaching is a hard job, like Member Bixler says. It is very, very challenging, and we want to work with our people, but hopefully something like this serves as a deterrent. We certainly don't want people who don't want to work in Liberty to be here. However, I feel like it's your moral obligation when you signed a contract to live up to that contract for the students.
And I fully agree. So I'm supportive of this, mainly because we need people who gave their word. They signed on the dotted line a contract that they're going to be available to service our kids. And it's not saying every person that leaves their district this is going to happen to, but it's the ones that abandon their duty, their job. They walk off, they walk out on these kids, and that is extremely disruptive to their environment. I mean, I could tell you stories about times that this happened and it disrupted not just a kid's education for a week or two, it was the rest of the year. And so I'm supportive of this. Thank you.
So members, this district once upon a time had these liquidated damages in them up until about 5 years ago. That's when it came out. This has come before this board in the last 3 years. In 2 or 3 of those incidences in every instance that I've been on the board prior to Dr. Monroe coming on as our superintendent, it has been reported to the board that the Teacher Advisory Committee actually supports this. Did we talk to them this year? Has there been any discussion?
We did talk to them at the last, at our last teacher advisory group, and they just had some questions, but were not negative about this. Just had questions wondering if the board would support, because from what I've been told in the past, the board wasn't necessarily supportive. And it affects our kids the most, but it also affects other teachers when teachers abandon their contract as well. A teacher might have to take on extra kids or do extra duties and things like this. And so it really should be a two-way contract. Again, there are one-offs, and we will treat people like people. There are extenuating circumstances sometimes, and we will continue to treat people like people. Sometimes people do have to leave and have extenuating, and we understand that. We absolutely understand that.
Sure. I think it's important. It's not very difficult to look up the definition of a contract. It's a written or spoken agreement, especially one concerning employment, sales, or tenancy that is intended to be enforced by law. A contract gives protections on both sides. What we currently have is not a teacher contract. We have a teacher promissory. I don't know what we call that. There's nothing enforceable from the other side. I understand Board Member Bixler's point that teaching's not for everybody. If we have a first-year teacher who comes in, who gets into this and says, whoops, I made a mistake, I think, again, we have some room for that. But it's the teachers who have been doing this for 5 or 10 years who just decide, yeah, I'm going to move on. And they abandon students, these very students that everybody comes to this meeting that fights for special ed students, fights for gifted students, fights for the general ed students, that walks away. And positions are harder and harder to fill. Now, this district in the last year has done very well, and our retention rate is very high, coming back, it appears. So I think we're over those hurdles a little bit. So this really shouldn't be a problem for very many, and it is very common. As when I was at the School Board Association meetings, I've talked to a lot of boards. They're like, yeah, what's the purpose of a contract if it's not enforceable and if it doesn't work on both ends? Along with this note, we have a lot of resignations who come to us, to the board. The resignation is not approved until it comes to the board. People turn it into you and say, oh, that unfortunately you're not the one, Dr. Monroe's not the one to approve those. I think a board can make some common sense decisions. In the past, we said if somebody gets a promotional opportunity, that's something we consider. We don't want to hold somebody back. And we're a smaller district that doesn't always have the same promotional opportunity. Those are rare mid-year. It's usually because something really strange has happened at a district. So we're not going to see that a lot. We may see it early on if we sign somebody now and then they get an opportunity to promote in another district. That's good because we have that opportunity before it impacts students. I can even see some sort of a tiered approach on it, but I am supportive of this, and every teacher I've spoke to is supportive of it. So I don't understand. Again, we hear all the time in emails, listen to the teachers. We're listening to the teachers, and this is what they're saying should be in this. And to be quite honest, I think they're as frustrated as this board has been over people just abandoning their positions. There's no other place where you can just walk off of a contract. You buy a car. Some people buy a car and realize the same thing. Well, this payment was not for me. There's a consequence to that. And they've spent 4 years at least in college. They've done student teaching time or some sort of mentoringship. They've invested in this. So even a new teacher, you have to know there are things that come about, and we're human, and I think we can look at those as a case-by-case basis, and that's fine. And that's what gives us the strength of what happens. But heck, even in a contract, if somebody passes away, they still come after the estate to get their money on a car, a house, or whatever. So that's what a contract is, and that gives assurances. But as it is right now, we're offering everything to the staff, and they're not offering anything in return except for, well, we'll be here till we're not. And I think that's not a contract. So if we didn't have this, I don't know why we entertain contracts.
Mr. Board President, if I can just answer your question and what Dr. Mulhorn had mentioned, that it was brought up in the teacher advisory group meeting minutes on January 24th, and it was for severance fee.
And
so just to answer your
supported
question. It was in the meeting minutes, so we did discuss it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's discussion's one thing, but their support of that was there too. Okay. All right, then we'll listen to the teachers. I'll take a motion.
Mr. President, motion to approve the addition of liquidated damages language to the certified teacher contract.
I will second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the liquidated damages language to the certified teacher contract. I call your name, please specify your vote. Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Nay.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that approved 3 yes, 1 no. Next up will be item 6.4, discussion consideration to approve construction manager at risk, AIA contracts, and First Amendment with FCI constructors for construction of the transportation facility. Ms. Strickler.
That was a mouthful.
Yes, it was. I didn't write that. That must have been you.
Excuse me, Mr. President, Vice President, board members, let me start by providing some history. On May 27th, 2023, the board approved selection of FCI constructors for construction of the transportation facility. Following the approval, the district entered negotiations with FCI constructors over the form of the construction manager at risk contract using the standard American Institute of Architect form contract with modifications made by the district to conform to requirements for public projects and to comply with the Arizona School District Procurement Code. FCI constructors have agreed to the proposed modifications, and the final contract documents and amendment are presented for your review. The district administration also requests a delegation of authority to the Executive Director of Business Services for execution of the AIA contracts and amendment and any related documents as may be necessary under the AIA documents. This delegation of authority does not apply to the guaranteed maximum price, which will be brought to the board by amendment to this contract. The contracts and amendment have been reviewed and approved by legal counsel.
Members, any questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Was this just discussion?
No, we have action.
Oh, there's an action, okay.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the construction manager at risk AIA contracts and First Amendment with FCI constructors for construction of the transportation facility.
Have a second.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve that long
And
mouthful.
Since we have it, can I discuss this for a
We
minute?
can discuss it. I got to clarify the motion in a second, and then we'll open for discussion. Now we're ready for discussion.
Within the action, the motion, I didn't hear you say delegate the executive director of business services to execute any documents. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I apologize, my computer's not working, so I didn't have the full text. I just went with what was on the agenda, and I didn't realize that was in there. I would be more than happy to include that in the motion.
Does your second still stand with that added language?
Second.
Okay. I think we're fine with that. Okay. Hearing that, thank you for the clarification. I will call for your vote. Vice President Parks?
Aye.
Board Member Bixler?
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that proof 4 yes, 0 no. Next up will be item 6.5, discussion consideration to approve to procure long lead items for Transportation Center to FCI for Transportation Center. Mr. Bob Young.
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, members of the board, it is recommended the governing board approve the following motion, approve authorization to procure long lead items for the Transportation Center to FCI for the fuel tank and electrical gear for Transportation Center. These items will be included with the GMP we'll be bringing to you in the near future for approval, but these are the items we need to get ordered right away because they're a long lead item. And now that we've approved the contract, we can give them the go-ahead and get these things ordered.
Members, I'll take discussion or a motion.
Motion to approve authorization to procure long lead items for Transportation Center to FCI for the fuel tank and electrical gear for the Transportation Center.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve item 6.5. Just for some public knowledge, Mr. Young, when we talk about long lead times, these are very long now. Can you give a couple examples of how long we're talking about?
Correct. Some of the electrical gear is going 40 to 45 weeks, up to 70 weeks, depending on the size of the unit. The fuel tanks, I think that was like 3 months out. So I believe is what the lead time on the fuel tank.
Okay. Where it used to be a couple weeks. Yeah. Okay, we've got the motion, we've got the second. When I call your name, please specify your vote. Board President, Vice President, man, I'll get this right someday. Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that proof 4 yes, 0 no. Next on our agenda is recommended the governing, let's see, 6.6, discussion and consideration to approve construction manager at risk for school number 8. Ms. Strickler.
Mr. President, Vice President, members of the board, on January 9th, 2024, the district issued RFQ 24-01-24, seeking requests for qualifications from qualified vendors to provide the services of construction manager at risk required for the successful completion of school number 8. The services include, but are not limited to, design support, pre-construction, and construction for school number 8. The district conducted the RFQ in accordance with Arizona Administrative Code Rules 7-2-1100 through R7-2-1116. An evaluation committee was established and consisted of David Schmidt, architect with DLR, Tiffany Fisher, vice president with GCON, district employees Bob Young, Crystal Mosier, and Bruce Neminsky. On January 23, 2024, statements of qualifications were received from 6 qualified firms. Qualifications were scored based on the selection criteria listed in the RFQ. 3 firms were invited to participate in interviews. The interviews were conducted on February 1st, 2024. Through the combined ranking of both the interview process and the evaluation of requests for qualifications and performance data submitted, the evaluation committee selected the highest ranked firm for recommendation. I'm going to fill in the blank. The district hereby requests governing board approval to begin negotiations with Core Construction, the most qualified contractor on the final list. The district administration also requests a delegation of authority to the Executive Director of Business Services for execution of the AIA contracts and any related documents as may be necessary under the AIA documents. This delegation of authority, again, does not apply to the guaranteed maximum price, which will be brought to the board by an amendment.
Members, questions, or I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Core Construction as contract manager at risk for school number 8 and authorize the Executive Director of Business Services to execute applicable AIA contracts with such modifications as in the best interest of the district and that complies with the laws and regulations applicable to the district.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion? I would just like to thank the committee for their hard work on this process. I know that it's not an easy job, and we appreciate their work. With that being said, I'll call for the vote. Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that proof 4 yes, 0 no. Is anybody from Core? Yeah. If you'd like to say anything, you're more than welcome.
President Todd, board members, Dr. Monroe, and staff, I am so thankful on behalf of Core Construction for this opportunity. My name is Tara Zeke. I'm Vice President of Education for Core Construction, and I will tell you that we are really looking forward to starting to work with the SFD, work with DLR. We partner with them quite a bit. And then also the community and the administration. Serving the Buckeye community and the Goodyear community has always meant a lot to us. We do a lot of work in the West Valley, so we are going to have some challenges ahead of us, but we're gonna have some fun doing it too. So I do want to thank you guys, and we will not let you down. Thank you.
Thank you. We certainly appreciate you being here. It hasn't always gone that way, but thank you for Core for being here tonight. Okay, next up will be item 6.7, discussion and consideration of a call for a special board meeting to review applications and interview prospective candidates for the governing board to fill the current vacancy on the Liberty Elementary School District Governing Board. Dr. Monroe.
So President Todd, Vice President Parks, and members of the board, we discussed this about 45 minutes ago with regards to the board vacancy, or maybe an hour ago. About a community forum if the board wanted to discuss and consider doing that on the date that is approved here, or what the board wants that to look like. We stand ready. to, again, post for the board vacancy according to the board's direction and hold this community forum if the board so directs.
Members, any questions, comments?
Mr. President, just a comment. I believe 3/4 of this board has gone through this process. I think it's a good one. I like the idea of asking for applicants and then interviewing in a public forum. So I would like to stay with what we've done in the past.
I agree with Ms. Bixler. I think the process, and I think it's critical for us to try to attract some candidates here locally that we vet, and then send those qualified candidates to Steve Watson. Were we gonna? What was our schedule on posting? Were we gonna post this and send out an email, or what were we gonna do?
We are ready. I believe we're ready to do it tonight. Minnie and I were going to stay late to make sure it got posted per the board's direction. A lot of districts will post it on their website, so all the applicants can get all their
And are we going to post an
there.
application then?
Yeah, there'd be an application that they fill out, and then we ask them for like a letter per the board's direction, but like a letter, a resume, and maybe like why you want to be on the school board, like a packet that the board can see.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Members, I have. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
I just think this is a great process as well. I've been through it a number of times. I didn't get appointed any of those times, but I've been through it a few times. I think it's a great process.
I was never appointed either.
So, you know, I just love having the community come in, even if you're here, and I would ask that when we have this forum, that community members do come in and participate, even if you're not the one in the hot seat, because it shows support, it shows that you're invested, and so I love this process. So thank you.
Members, I think the process is good. I would like to afford the public an opportunity as well. Having no idea how much response that would get, but valuing their opinion and valuing their questions, what I would propose is that each board member submit 2 questions to Dr. Monroe that will be asked, and then we will do an online form where people can submit their questions up to 3 days before the forum, and at that point, each board member the night of would be able to pick 1 question from the public that we would then ask. So you can go through the list, pick 1 that came in from the public, because we just don't know how many, and I think that's the only fair way to do it. We may get 1, we may get 100, and I would request that you accept that offer.
President Todd, can I just repeat that? I want to make sure I got that. So you were saying, and I may have missed something. So you were asking that each board member submit 2 questions to me that could be asked to the candidates.
Right, and we'll ask both of those to the candidates.
Okay.
So you'll have 8 questions for the 4 of us.
And then you said have like an online forum a few days, 2 or 3 days before, where community members can submit questions, and then each board member select one during
Yeah, we'd select one. So they need to have a deadline of about 3 days before the meeting, so it gives us some time to review those questions. And like a Google form, and then any member of the public can submit a question. I think it's mandatory, though, that we get their name. We need to do some validation so that we don't have it stacked up. So I think in Google Forms, you can set it up where they have to register, and you can limit it to 1 question. So we'll validate.
Okay. And then at the forum, the board would select one of those public questions. Okay.
So you've got 8 coming from the
you'd have
board.
like 12 questions.
Technically, you'll have 12 questions.
Okay.
And then I think we give them an opportunity in the beginning to give a little intro of themselves and a intro and maybe even a closing.
Mr. President, just one concern on process, or pardon me, format. I like the idea of submitting the questions, but I think they should all be asked by 1 person only.
We can certainly look to see if there's 1 person who can ask the questions.
We can certainly
Done
look
differently
for
in the past. I
for
don't
a
think that works
moderator.
well. I think it should be 1 person.
We've had a
asking the
moderator
question.
before. Yeah, we've had a moderator at some over the years. We've had a moderator sometimes.
Again, we have done that differently in the past. I think we need to do it that way this time.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, we can certainly find a moderator for it.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that date, President Todd and members of the board, that would, just so you know, that date that's proposed on here as I was looking at the schedule, there's a board meeting on Monday night, February the 26th. So that's a late night. I know the board members are really busy. The time I put here for the forum would be Wednesday, 2 days later, and I just put 5:30 to 7:30. Obviously, the motion can be amended, but I wanted to put that up there for the board. So that would be that's a Wednesday night. So that'd be a Wednesday night. So we would have the forum, and then there would be a board item. Correct me if I'm wrong, President Todd. There would be a board item where the board votes on or
Yes.
discusses who the 3 names that I advanced to the county superintendent.
Correct. And I would just caution that we don't put an end time, because if we do that, we have to stop.
Okay.
So we should never
5:30.
put an end time on a public meeting unless we're really going to stop at that point.
Copy.
Members, do we want to put any limits of the time they can take to answer their questions? Okay.
If there's no other, then administration would recommend that the governing board approve a special board meeting or a public forum to review applications and interview prospective candidates for the governing board to fill the current vacancy on the Liberty Elementary School District Governing Board on Wednesday, February the 28th, beginning at 5:30 p.m.
All right, so Clyde, helping out, should we do a work study session first for the forum and then reconvene to a business meeting, or do we just do it all as one?
I don't think you need to convene separate meetings.
Okay.
I think you could do
We
it
can
all
do it
at
as
once.
one?
It's
It's on.
yeah, I think you could just do it all in the same meeting. Just
Okay.
to have different agenda items.
Okay. Just want to make sure we got it right from the start. Thank you. Okay, members?
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve a special board meeting, public forum, to review applications and interview prospective candidates for the governing board to fill the current vacancy on the Liberty Elementary School District Governing Board on Wednesday, February 28th from 5:30 to 7:30.
No time. No end
I
time.
apologize.
Beginning at
Without
5.
the time on Wednesday,
Beginning at 5:30, yeah.
beginning at 5:30.
Okay, so to clarify your motion for the minutes, it's going to approve a special board meeting that includes a public forum to review applications and interview prospective candidates for the governing board to fill the current vacancy, the Liberty Elementary School District Governing Board on Wednesday, February 28th, starting at 5:30 p.m.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. When I call your name, specify your vote. Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that approved 4 yes, 0 no. Next is item 7, governing board comments and topics or recommended agenda topic additions.
Mr. President, this is an interesting request, but it's bothersome from sitting over here in the corner. I've got an issue with this monitor up here. I can't see the presenters most of the time. I know Minnie probably can't.
Monitor here.
Yeah, is there something we can do? Maybe even a portable large monitor we can put up front here and get rid of that thing, or a small one or something, because it's really in the way.
All right. Vice President Parks, I did put in a help ticket a while ago, and nothing came of it. It was closed with no support from IT. So we'll ask staff if they
Let's
can.
open that up again, because
some
it's
direction.
really difficult to interact with the person at the.
No problem.
I think it would be really good if we can look at this whole situation, because it's very hard to see that monitor at times from this angle, and these have glares from the lights, and that's an eye chart. So maybe we just need to look at the needs.
I think if we just, this is an idea. If we could just put a portable large screen monitor, we can roll right out in front of the dais or something for people to see. Anyway, just a suggestion, and it would sure be helpful. I also would propose we do a letter to the Goodyear and Buckeye Police Department on behalf of the board for the RSO SSO.
And do you want that to them, or do you want that to ADE to ask them to?
Oh, I'm
better
sorry, the
support it?
ADE. I'm sorry.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Members, I have a few things I'd like to address. One, I feel like we're missing some pretty critical stuff on Fridays. So I'd like to propose that we look at bringing our admin and cabinet staff back to a 5-day week. I'd also like that we dive deep into our professional development and have a meeting to discuss this. I've heard from many over this issue with reading interventionists that there's no PD for them. There's no tier 1 support. Some of them have been told to go help the teachers, but if they're already not endorsed or strong in their capacity, I think that's an issue. So I'd like to look at how we're structuring PD, and I guess first I would challenge staff to come up with something that's going to work, not next year, but this year. We've been playing this professional development game for a long time, and it needs to change. And I would like to look at us going to more of a menu type option, where we're not just forcing everything to the teachers, but giving them and their administrators and coaches an opportunity to pick some things that they really need. So I'd ask staff to look at that. The other thing I have is on our agendas. We don't publish those until Friday, and it's very difficult for the public to see those and react to a Monday meeting. So I think we need to start getting our agendas out, at least in draft form, earlier so people can see what's coming up. It gives them an opportunity to ask questions sooner, better understand if they need to come to the meeting or not. And we've talked about this before. I realize that's a burden on staff initially, but we've got to be better at letting the public know what's coming up on agenda. It's very challenging otherwise. So I'd ask staff to look at a plan for that. But I think we should have our draft up at least a week ahead, probably a week ahead of time, so they know what's going on. I'm just curious if staff will be providing us a list of, I think it came up already, but teacher contract renewals, when that will be. That's coming up soon, correct? You can just update us in a board report on that. And then we've asked for some information from IT. We've been asking for a workable guest network for 3 years. We still don't have it. That's a concern. So with that, I would like the board to explore outsourcing the IT department. I would also like to look at us outsourcing some of our financial work if they're overworked, and looking at that. And then last but not least, I'd like the staff to do some research on an alternative to board docs, because and have them come to a meeting, because this is not working for us. It's cumbersome. It's slow to load, and we need to figure out where this is. IT says it's on their side. We don't seem to see any fixes. So maybe if we let them know we're looking at ending our agreement with them and moving elsewhere, we can get some true answers. There's no more. It's those people in the audience's favorite part of the meeting. Number 8. Oh no, I'm jumping ahead. Sorry guys, I didn't mean to tease you. Upcoming board meetings. We've got a slew of them. February 26th. We're gonna do one on the 28th as well now, correct? Yep, we'll do one on the 28th. We'll have March 11th, March 25th, April 8th, April 29th, and staff will expeditiously get a work session going for the reading intervention program and the professional development stuff. And let us know on those dates, or maybe pull the board to make sure we're available. Now it's all of you's favorite time. 9.1.
Mr. President, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. I call your name, specify your vote. Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show 4 yes, 0 no. I have no idea. No, I had...